Douluo, the martial spirit of the Sharingan and the lightning fruit. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 101 Detoxification. Douluo looked at him deeply, without saying anything, and directly controlled a little snake in his hand to bite down on the other's arm. As the little snake opened its mouth, two sharp fangs bit directly towards Ling Yu's arm. Clang. A sharp sound of metal collision came from Ling Yu's arm. Douluo looked at the other party strangely, and then looked at the little snake in his hand that was dizzy and dazed. He said in a strange way, "What kind of physical fitness is this kid? Even poisonous snakes can't bite through your skin." Ling Yu's expression was also a little embarrassed. His body had exceeded the extreme of forging bones. Ordinary swords and knives could not break his defense. This little snake was not directly killed by his skin, but was dizzy and dazed. It can only be said that it is indeed worthy of being the top existence among poisonous snakes. Wait a minute, senior. He took out the edgeless sword from his back and gently cut a cut on his arm. Blood flowed from his arm and dripped onto the long sword. Strangely, the blood did not remain on the sword, but was gradually absorbed by the long sword. This strange scene once again made Douluo's eyes tremble. He took a deep look at the long sword in the other party's hand, and his eyes flashed with surprise. "Okay, senior." Ling Yu stretched out his arm forward, indicating that the other party was ready. Douluo didn't say anything more. This kid was really weird. To be honest, he had already believed most of it in his heart at this time. He had never seen such a weird boy in his life. Under the control of the other party, the little snake spit a mouthful of green venom at the wound on Ling Yu's arm. The imagined sizzling sound did not appear. Instead, the venom of the venomous snake turned into a green smoke and disappeared the moment it touched Ling Yu's blood. Douluo stared at this scene with wide eyes in disbelief. How is this possible? He was shocked. This is a 9-section jadeite. Ling Yu didn't explain much, just chuckled and said, "Senior, how is it?" Douluo looked at the other party intently again and exhaled deeply. "Okay, I admit that you have the ability to help me detoxify." Ling Yu was not too surprised after hearing this. With the help of the Yaoxiang Kilo immortal product and his current body that is immune to all poisons, he still couldn't break this poison. This body is useless. "Tell me, boy, how can you help me detoxify?" Ling Yu looked at the other party's somewhat decadent appearance and said with a smile, "Senior, please rest assured. I have prepared a solution for your condition." Before the other party asked, Ling Yu continued, "First, you need to drink my blood." "Drink your blood? I'm not an evil soul master." Douluo looked at him strangely. This boy, did he drink fake wine? Why is everything so weird? Detoxification and drinking blood? Do you think your blood is a panacea? Liu Erlong also looked at Ling Yu strangely. If she wasn't very familiar with him, she would even think that the other party was dizzy after soaking in the spring for a long time. Seeing the expressions of the two, Ling Yu had to explain, "I let you drink my blood for detoxification, not for anything else, but because my blood can detoxify all kinds of poisons. This is why your 9-section jade snake venom just now had no effect on me." Hearing this, Douluo suddenly realized. "So that's it. It seems that your physique is really special." Ling Yu nodded and continued, "I will give you some blood. You don't need to drink too much. Drinking 10 drops a day is enough." In fact, Ling Yu didn't know how many drops to drink. He could only think about it based on his memory. No matter how many drops, drinking more will not hurt. I remember watching the video in my previous life. Tang-san always put a few drops of his own blood in the alchemy furnace, then kneaded the herbs into a ball, handed it to Douluo to eat, and saw that the other party's symptoms improved. Then, "Senior, you need to do one last thing," Douluo asked in confusion. "What else do you need to do?" "Force your poison into your soul bone." Ling Yu looked at the other party's sudden realization and continued, "I believe it is not difficult for Senior to find a soul bone. Of course, if Senior can join the Spirit Hall, I can ask the people in the Spirit Hall to give you one." Douluo stretched out his hand to interrupt him. "No need. I have it myself. I already know your detoxification method. But in order to detoxify smoothly, please stay here for a little longer." Ling Yu said eagerly, "It should be so. You should know that the energy of heaven and earth is several times that of the outside world. The speed of cultivation here is absolutely fast." Thinking of this, Ling Yu took out a cup from his ring and cut a hole on his wrist with the edgeless sword. When the blood filled the cup, Ling Yu controlled the cultivation method. In just a few seconds, the cut on the skin was completely healed visibly. This scene made Douluo look at him again. Seeing Douluo taking the cup and walking towards the cave, Ling Yu excitedly took Liu Erlong's hands and went to the medicine garden. "Erlong, come quickly. I found something that will be of great benefit to you." Ling Yu picked a simple but strange red grass. The top of the grass was in the shape of a coxcomb, but the veins were golden. "What is this?" Liu Erlong took the grass from Ling Yu's hand and observed it curiously. "This is called coxcomb phoenix sunflower, which is a great tonic for fire attribute soul masters. Not only can it purify the soul power of fire attribute soul masters, but it can also greatly purify their fire attributes. It can be called a treasure for fire attribute soul masters." Liu Erlong opened his eyes wide and said in disbelief, "This little grass has such an effect." Ling Yu nodded excitedly. This fairy grass eaten by Ma Hongjin in the original book directly raised the other party's talent by more than one level. Seeing Ling Yu's affirmative look, Liu Erlong asked, "How do I take it? Can I just eat it?" Ling Yu hurriedly shook his head and said, "This thing cannot be chewed or swallowed. It can only be channeled with soul power. It will be very uncomfortable during the period, but you must persist. It will bring great benefits to your martial soul and body." Liu Erlong nodded heavily, walked to a distance and sat cross-legged on the ground, holding the fairy grass in her hand, and began to absorb it with her heart. As Liu Erlong absorbed the fairy grass, blazing flames began to emerge from her body. The temperature of the flame was extremely high. Even though he was dozens of meters away, Ling Yu could still feel the heat wave coming towards him. In just a moment, Liu Erlong's clothes had been burned to ashes. Black liquid gradually emerged from her perfect body, and was burned to ashes by the flames on her body. This was the power of the fairy grass to cleanse her marrow. Ling Yu used earth escape to build a simple earth house next to her and wrapped her body. He stood aside to help her protect the law. Chapter 102 Absorption. An hour later, with a violent vibration in the earth house, a huge heat wave instantly spread out in all directions. Several earth walls were instantly burned into red magma by the huge flames on the other side and fell to the ground. Suddenly, a huge dragon roar came from the front, and a beautiful woman with a body burning with billowing flames and long black hair that had turned into fiery red hair appeared beside him. She hugged Ling Yu excitedly and said excitedly, "Hey you, I have actually upgraded 2 levels. I am now level 88. And, as she said that, a martial spirit that had changed greatly from the original one appeared behind her in an instant. Although the original fire dragon was also very shocking, it was nothing compared to the one in front of him. At this time, the fire dragon behind Liu Erlong actually grew a pair of huge fire dragon wings, and the body of the fire dragon became more burly. Every muscle on the body seemed to be cast in iron and copper. At a glance, it was extremely fascinating. The dragon's horns became sharper, and its 4 elements became thicker and stronger. This look made Ling Yu feel a bit like the fire dragon king under the spring. No, there are still differences. The color of this fire dragon is not as bright as the one under the spring, and the dragon's eyes are different from the one below. Is this martial soul evolved? Ling Yu looked at the dragon behind Liu Erlong and said in surprise. The woman nodded excitedly and clung to Ling Yu again excitedly. Ahem. Erlong, put on your clothes first. Senior Douluo is still detoxifying in the cave. Liu Erlong came back to her senses. She looked at her body and took out a brand new robe from the soul guide with a blushing face and put it on. It seems that this time you have a huge improvement. Ling Yu looked at her appearance and didn't change much, but her black hair became bright red, which made Liu Erlong's already hot figure more attractive. Less melancholy than before, more cheerful and lively. Just like a young girl. The woman walked to Ling Yu's side, rubbed his cheek a few times, and said with a happy smile, "It's all thanks to you. When we go back, let me serve you well, okay?" Ling Yu rubbed his nose and nodded with difficulty. The woman who saw this scene laughed even more happily, and giggled. The medicine garden continued to emit the happy laughter of girls. After Ling Yu played with the other party for a while, he set his sights on the fairy grass in the medicine garden. There was a flash of excitement in his eyes. According to the method of use in Yu Guan's book, he picked all the fairy grasses in his mind. Half an hour later, when the last fairy grass was picked by him, Ling Yu wiped the sweat from his forehead a few times. This kind of delicate work is really not easy. Putting away the magic grass and tools, Ling Yu gave Liu Erlong instructions, walked to an open area, and took out a seemingly inconspicuous herb from the ring. The herb was green all over, and strangely, there were 3 snow-white leaves in the center of the herb, and there were a few drops of water in the center of the leaves, just like the dew left in the morning. Magic grass, longing for the autumn water dew. He poured the dew in the center of the leaf into his mouth without hesitation. The next moment, the moment he drank the dew, the herb instantly turned into a ball of dust and dissipated in his hand. He hurriedly sat cross-legged on the ground. He could clearly feel the huge mental power in his body constantly penetrating into his eyes, and the pure mental power constantly impacted his Sharingan martial spirit. The 3 Magatama in his pupils kept spinning rapidly in his eyes. With the absorption and impact of mental power, the rotation speed of the Magatama in his eyes continued to accelerate, as if they were about to be connected into a line. Coupled with the blessing of the second soul skill, he could clearly feel that his mental power was growing rapidly at an exaggerated speed. In his sea of consciousness, Ling Yu looked at the space in front of him. The green mountains, green waters, mountains, rivers and trees all seemed to be crushed by something, mixed and blended into a broad golden mist. As the world in front of him changed, the golden mist continued to expand. I don't know how long it took, when Ling Yu saw that the mist completely filled the entire sea of consciousness. I don't know if it was his illusion. He felt that the sea of consciousness in front of him was inexplicably shaking, but this scene did not affect the dragon shadow in the sky at all. The other party was still flying in the sky at this time, as if nothing could disturb him. Boom! Like an explosion, or the sound of a balloon bursting, the sea of consciousness exploded like a bomb. However, as the mental power in the body continued to be absorbed, the sea of consciousness was also constantly repairing and expanding. Ling Yu stared at this scene blankly. Time kept passing, and the sea of consciousness in front of him gradually repaired and expanded. A few minutes later, he looked at the sea of consciousness in front of him, which was almost twice as large as the outside, and the mist above his head began to compress. As if a blessing came to my heart, the first drop of liquid spiritual power was born. As the golden mist continued to compress, the extremely pure liquid spiritual power continued to drip from the mist into the sea of consciousness that had changed greatly. Dong dong. There were continuous soft sounds. As the last drop of liquid spiritual power dripped, the golden mist completely disappeared, leaving only a liquid spiritual power aggregate the size of a small pond. Compared with the vast sea of consciousness, this small pond was like a small wasteland that suddenly appeared on the prairie. In contrast, this pond seemed too small. This was still the case when the second soul skill increased by an additional 20%, otherwise it would be even smaller. Ling Yu felt the current spiritual power. If the previous spiritual power was like a plate of loose sand, it would be absorbed and flowed down when poured into a glass of water, but the spiritual power at this moment was like a stone, tough and powerful. Although the quantity has decreased, the quality has improved by more than 10%. You are really lucky, you can get such a great opportunity so quickly. Just when Ling Yu was still immersed in the feeling after the transformation of his spiritual power, the voice of the sword spirit suddenly sounded in his mind. I thought it would take you at least 1 to 2 years to reach this step, but I didn't expect that you would complete it in just a few hours. At this point, the sword spirit's tone became sour again. Why didn't I have such good luck back then? Ling Yu's eyes lit up instantly when he heard the sword spirit's voice. I remember you seemed to say that when my spiritual power reaches liquid state and reaches the level of Soul Douluo, I can accept your initiation. His face was a little excited. My current spiritual power is comparable to that of a soul master who has just entered Soul Douluo. It should be able to meet your requirements, right? The sword spirit's tone was a little envious and jealous. Wait a little longer, don't you still have those 2 Dragon Balls? After absorbing some of those 2 Dragon Balls, I will give you the initiation. Stinky boy. You are so damn lucky. After that, the sword spirit's voice disappeared immediately, leaving only the remaining envy and jealousy floating in the air. Chapter 103, Conditions for Achieving the Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. After Ling Yu saw the sea of consciousness change, his eyes suddenly felt cool. He opened his eyes, and his eyes were still 3 Magatama Sharingan, but after this great increase in mental strength, Ling Yu knew that his Sharingan was very close to evolution. As long as he obtains the 4th soul ring, he can almost evolve the Sharingan to the level of Mangekyo. Moreover, he took out the 2 Dragon Balls from the ring, looked at the red and blue beads in his hand, and a smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. In fact, Ling Yu had also thought about the evolution of the Mangekyo. In Naruto, The Mangekyo contains a curse, and frequent use will make the user fall into darkness and lose light. To break this curse, you must use your brother's Mangekyo Sharingan to replace your own eyes. After absorbing the 2 pairs of blood-related Mangekyo Sharingan, the Sharingan will evolve to the eternal Mangekyo, and the curse will be automatically broken. But this is Douluo continent, where there are soul power, soul bones, soul rings, and gods. There is no need to be so troublesome. Obito once used the powerful recovery power of Oshirima's cells to offset the curse of the Mangekyo Sharingan, which is why he can always use the Mangekyo. But here, it is enough to keep improving your mental power. Ling Yu's intuition tells him that as long as his mental power can undergo a qualitative change again, that will be the opportunity for the Sharingan to evolve into the eternal Mangekyo. And in the final analysis, the main reason why the Samsara Eye can evolve from the eternal Mangekyo is the fusion of the Sage Body and the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. Of course, some people say that it is the chakra of Indra and Ashura that is causing trouble. But no matter how they make trouble, these 2 people themselves represent the ultimate yin escape and the ultimate yang escape. Both are indispensable, and only when the 2 factors are combined can they enter the final Sage Eye. But this is not the Naruto world, this is Douluo continent. Ling Yu knows that the completion of the Sage Body is absolutely related to the Sage Mode, that is, it is related to natural energy. Isn't natural energy the energy of heaven and earth? People here in Douluo continent absorb this energy and convert it into soul power for cultivation. Although there is no Sage Mode, this is equivalent to taking the first step. Ling Yu's body is about to reach the limit of body forging. After being transformed by the Hongmeng Purple Key, his recovery ability is already very strong. His body is absorbing external energy all the time. He guessed that his body is very similar to the Sage Body of Hashirama. It's just that his recovery ability is not as terrible as theirs. Among the 7 realms of cultivation, to be able to do what Hashirama did, a broken arm can be healed instantly, and an injured body can be healed quickly without seals. This realm, Ling Yu must practice the cultivation method to the extreme of the 4th realm of marrow washing. The 4th realm of marrow washing, the limit is 50,000 kilograms, blood breeds, forging the body at all times, comprehension, aptitude greatly improved, cultivation speed greatly improved, and initially trained into a spiritual body. The bone forging realm has been able to make his bones harder and his body's recovery degree much higher again. The next realm of marrow washing can make his body be washed, and strengthened by his own blood all the time, and the flesh will become stronger rapidly under such circumstances. As for this so-called spirit body, Ling Yu actually felt that he had almost completed this small goal, but it might be different. However, this realm was clearly marked in the book. Because the body had to be washed for 9 times before reaching the limit, Ling Yu guessed that it would take at least 5 years to complete this realm. He exhaled deeply and stood up from the grass. "Ayu, how is it?" Liu Erlong walked to Ling Yu's side and asked kindly. "I just felt a strong mental fluctuation, which can even be comparable to the Soul Master who just entered the Soul Douluo. Could it be?" Ling Yu smiled and nodded. With the blessing of the 2nd Soul Ring, his mental power jumped directly from comparable to the Soul Saint to comparable to the Soul Douluo. Such an improvement is simply unheard of. This is the so-called fairy grass. This thing should only exist in heaven, how can it be heard of in the world? Liu Erlong looked at him in surprise. This little man is really powerful. He actually reached this level at this level. I told you. The man I like is the best in the world no matter what he does. Ling Yu just smiled helplessly, held the other's hand and walked into the medicine garden, looking at the ancient beauty in front of him, like a beautiful painting. That night, Ling Yu used Earth Escape to build a simple house here, and the 2 of them lived here casually. The next day, when the sky was still dim, Ling Yu walked to hillside with his long sword. "Sword spirit, how should I absorb these 2 beads?" Ling Yu asked the long sword. "Can I eat them directly?" Of course not. This time, the sword spirit did not envy or jealous, but whispered, "If you want to absorb these 2 crystals, it is also very simple. Press the 2 beads toward your eyes, and then you will know how to absorb them." After hearing this, Ling Yu did not hesitate and directly pressed the 2 beads towards his eyes. Buzz! An invisible wave emanated from the 2 beads. Ling Yu watched the 2 beads gradually become illusory, as if they had turned into a phantom, and instantly rushed into his eyes. Ling Yu couldn't help but close his eyes, and a cool feeling came from his eyes. A few minutes later, when Ling Yu opened his eyes, he suddenly heard a movement in his sea of consciousness, and he hurriedly looked inside. In the empty sea of consciousness, above the small pond formed by the gathering of spiritual power, two beads, one red and one blue, were suspended above. Ling Yu looked carefully and found that the two beads were constantly intertwined with each other, and they were constantly rotating while intertwining. Strands of red and blue mist emanated from the beads and penetrated into the small pond below. Boom! Like a drop of water falling on a calm lake, causing ripples, he could clearly sense that his spiritual power seemed to have something more. As time passed, two small creatures appeared in the small pond that was originally shining with golden light. Two small fish. The fish and the beads above were the same color. One red and one blue. The two fish kept wandering in the pond. Whenever they swam past, Ling Yu felt that his mental power was constantly increasing with the movement of the fish. Two color mists continued to drift down from the beads. All of the mists were absorbed by the fish in the pond. And they were slowly growing bigger. Whenever they grew bigger, their pond also expanded. It was as if the ratio of the pond to the fish had always maintained a constant value. Chapter 104, Changes in the Sea of Spirit. When Ling Yu opened his eyes, two faint rays of light, one red and one blue, shot forward from his eyes. He had never felt that he could see the world so clearly. After absorbing the autumn water dew, his Sharingan's observation range had expanded to a diameter of 1,200 meters. It is no exaggeration to say that he is the best scout on the battlefield with such a range. But at this moment, compared with before, Ling Yu felt that the world he saw seemed more vivid and colorful. Boy, don't stand there, take out your life gold and press it against your forehead. Just as Ling Yu was stunned, the voice of the sword spirit reminded him again in his mind. Ling Yu nodded, and his finger wiped off the ring, and a piece of green metal that was only the size of a palm appeared in his hand. At the moment the metal appeared, the already rich energy of heaven and earth around became more lively, and even the various precious herbs here were infected by this rich breath of life and kept swaying. Without hesitation, Ling Yu picked up the metal and gently pressed it against his forehead. Huh? Ling Yu felt that his body was like being blown by a warm wind in winter, or being watered by cool rain in hot summer. In short, at this time, he felt very comfortable. A rich green light emanated from his forehead and gradually enveloped his whole body. He could feel that every cell in every pore in his body was absorbing these purest life breaths selflessly, constantly nourishing every corner of his body. Just like a big well meeting a sweet rain, his body became more active under the influence of these life breaths, as if every cell was shining and competing for beauty. The meridians, which were already several times wider than those of ordinary soul masters, began to expand again at this moment, which meant that his cultivation speed would be accelerated again, and these life breaths continued to flow in the meridians, making the soft meridians even tougher. Ling Yu looked at his body in disbelief. He suddenly felt that his body's recovery ability and cultivation speed seemed to have improved again. Suddenly, just as the green light tightly wrapped around his body, a heart-wrenching pain came from his mind. The green metal gradually melted, from solid to liquid, and penetrated into his forehead. The intense pain constantly stimulated his brain nerves, and he even felt that his brain would explode in the next moment. Boy, hold on. This is the last step. After completing this step, your sea of spirit will benefit greatly. At that time, your spiritual power will be firmly laid. This is the foundation for evolving into divine consciousness. You must hold on. After listening to the words of the sword spirit, Ling Yu gritted his teeth and held on again. To be honest, Ling Yu was also worried about whether the sword spirit had other thoughts at first, but since his body was reshaped, he has been extremely sensitive to a person's evil thoughts. During the time he spent with this sword spirit, he never felt that the other party had any bad evil thoughts about him, but only expectations and hopes. Although the two often quarreled, in Ling Yu's heart, after this period of getting along, the other party was both a teacher and a friend, and was definitely the person who helped him the most along the way. Whether it is the rapid growth of the body brought by daily sword-swinging exercises, or the teaching of swordsmanship, the function of the swordless sword, the discovery under the spring, etc., all help a lot. This may be the reason why an old man in the family is like a treasure. The green liquid continued to flow into his sea of consciousness. At the moment of entering the sea of consciousness, the rich green breath of life continued to spread towards the boundary of the sea of consciousness. The sea of consciousness, which was originally empty and somewhat desolate, became somewhat vibrant at this moment. Buzz! Invisible fluctuations continued to emanate from the sea of consciousness. Ling Yu could feel that because of the appearance of this piece of gold of life, His sea of consciousness was undergoing tremendous changes. The already vast sea of consciousness began to expand again at this moment, which laid a solid foundation for Ling Yu's future. It expanded his development potential. Moreover, with the continuous enrichment of the breath of life, the small fish in the pond began to become more active, and the speed of swimming became faster. The speed of the two small beads above the pond also became faster involuntarily. Half an hour later, when all the movements calmed down, Ling Yu looked at the sea of consciousness that had changed greatly. The originally barren space, at this moment, in addition to the pond, actually appeared a ground covered with green grass. The fish in the pond grew faster, and there were still many green life breaths floating above the sea of consciousness. These life breaths would constantly nourish their spiritual power, making them more tenacious and more solid. And his own sea of consciousness space was expanded by a full double than before. Although this did not improve his spiritual power, it meant that his spiritual power development potential would be doubled in the future. This is much greater than the benefits of directly increasing spiritual power. Ling Yu opened his eyes and took a deep breath. This time here, I got too much improvement. The physical strength has exceeded the limit of bone forging, the body is already invulnerable to all poisons, and the soul core has also been successfully condensed. In the future, his cultivation speed will be further enhanced, and his own spiritual power has not only been improved to the point comparable to Soul Douluo, but his spiritual sea has also laid a solid foundation, which is of great benefit to future development. Moreover, the two Dragon Balls above the sea of consciousness are still constantly bringing about the growth of mental power. Ling Yu even feels that he does not need to obtain the fourth soul ring at all. Maybe his eyes will break through to the level of kaleidoscope. And this time will not be too long, maybe just a few months will be enough. It just so happens that during this period of time, he will accompany Erlong to practice here and spend more time with her. Such a good place. If you practice here for half a year, according to your current practice speed, you can at least improve by 5 or 6 levels. Thinking of this, Ling Yu held the long sword in his hand and waved it at the sky that had not yet brightened. This time, because of the improvement brought by the body, Ling Yu, who could only swing less than 500 times, directly swung it 700 times without reaching the limit. This is the improvement of his body now. Although the increase in strength is not too much, the improvement in endurance is huge. And as the longsword is swung, the residual medicinal power of the two immortal herbs in the body is also being absorbed and digested by his body. The sword spirit in the longsword looked a little relieved. This time, the improvement directly raised the strength of this kid to another level. Maybe it won't be long before he can rival the title Douluo. Chapter 105 Liu Erlong's departure. Days passed by one after another. Since Ling Yu came to the yin-yang eyes of ice and fire, he has been practicing here with Liu Erlong. During this period, he also provided Douluo with 2 cups of his own blood again. After his blood and Douluo forced the poison into the soul bone, his long green hair gradually turned gray. Only his pupils still flashed with green light, which looked very breathtaking. After this detoxification experience, Ling Yu chatted with Douluo of course. The two did not talk about the knowledge between toxins. Ling Yu knew nothing about this. He just relied on the memory of his previous life to help the other party. They were talking about things about the mainland. One day 3 months later, Ling Yu was wandering in the spring and began to practice his own cultivation wantonly. With the existence of the yin-yang eyes of ice and fire, his practice speed increased by more than double. In addition, because of the birth of the soul core and the transformation of the gold of life, his practice speed was improved again. In the 3 months here, he has been promoted from level 32 to level 36. And now that he has opened his spirit Sharingan, the 3 Magatama in his eyes have been spinning rapidly, as if they will evolve into a Mangekyo Sharingan in the next moment. Ayu, it's time to eat. Liu Erlong stood by the spring and shouted to Ling Yu. In the past 3 months, because Douluo often needed to go out to visit his granddaughter, he did not always bring her to this medicine garden. This also gave Ling Yu and Liu Erlong the opportunity to be close. After 3 months of nourishment, the woman's red hair was tied up with a red headscarf. Her bright and beautiful cheeks, cinnabar white teeth, and bright eyes flashed, making her look even more beautiful. Ling Yu jumped up from the spring, quickly put on his clothes, held the woman's hand, and walked to the small house he made with Earth Escape. At this time, there were more than a dozen sumptuous dishes on the table, most of which were soul beast meat. And an old man with long gray hair sat quietly by the side waiting for the two to arrive. Senior Douluo, Ling Yu greeted the other party with a smile, then walked to the table with Liu Erlong by the hand, and the three of them began to eat. Boy Ling Yu, I have used your method to help Yan'an detoxify, and the effect is very good. Because her cultivation is still very low, the poisoning is not serious. This time I have helped her detoxify completely. Douluo took a few bites of the food, picked up a wine glass and took a sip and continued, but are you sure what you told me last time is true? Ling Yu swallowed the food in his mouth and said seriously, I won't joke with the senior about such a big thing. It won't be long before there will be a catastrophe on the continent. If the senior doesn't believe it, you can go to the upper three sects or the spirit hall to ask. I believe that in addition to the spirit hall, the upper three sects should also be aware of the unusual situation on the continent now. Of course, the Haoshan sect is an exception. I still don't know the reason why this sect closed the mountain, and the Pope also has a half understanding. Douluo nodded, his eyes became a little deep. It seems that this catastrophe is not simple. Two worlds, this is much more difficult and fierce than a battle between countries. This is a battle for survival. If they win, everyone will be happy. If they lose, all the creatures on Douluo continent will become slaves and be treated as livestock by the enemy. That's why I suggest that you join a faction. Even if it's not the Spirit Hall, you should at least join one of the top three sects. This way, you can protect your family in disguise, so that you don't have to worry when you are fighting in the front. After hearing Ling Yu's words, Douluo also nodded in agreement. When the catastrophe comes, the freedom he pursues will become very ridiculous. It seems that he really needs to join a faction. Thinking of this, he turned his head to look at Ling Yu, this talented boy. Hey, Ling Yu boy, Douluo chuckled and said, if I join the Spirit Hall, what benefits will the Spirit Hall give me? Ling Yu listened to the other party's words and said with some amusement, Senior Douluo, please forgive me for laughing. For a titled Douluo like you to join the Spirit Hall, the Spirit Hall can only give you a piece of 10,000 years soul bone as a bargaining chip. Of course, if you do something meritorious for the Spirit Hall in the later stage, such as hunting down a large number of evil soul masters, you may get other benefits. Douluo nodded with some satisfaction after hearing this. 10,000 years soul bone. He only has one piece on his body, and he has absorbed it. It is very sincere to be able to give such a price. Let me think about this for a while. Then I will give you an answer. After hearing this, Ling Yu did not say anything else. He believed that the other party would see his potential and make a wise choice considering the upcoming disaster. After dinner, Liu Erlong took Ling Yu's arm and came to a corner, and whispered, Yu, my father suddenly wrote to me yesterday and asked me to go back to the family. It seems that something important is going to happen. Ling Yu also said after hearing this, do you need me to go with you? Liu Erlong's face turned a little red. Although the relationship between the two had been confirmed long ago, she was still a little shy to meet the parents like this. Goodbye. Wait until next time. I will take you to see my father then. You must promise me that you will propose marriage then. As she said this, Liu Erlong pouted her mouth, shook Ling Yu's arm constantly, and looked like a spoiled child. Her eyes even revealed that if you dare not agree, I will never let you go. Ling Yu smiled helplessly, reached out and stroked the other's cheek a few times, and smiled, I know. Don't worry, I will do this next time I see your father. After the two kissed goodbye, Ling Yu looked at Liu Erlong's disappearing back, took a deep breath, and returned to the spring to start practicing again. But the development of things is always unexpected. I thought that Liu Erlong would be back in 2 or 3 days at most. However, after Douluo went out once, he brought back a letter. The content of the letter was very simple. That is, because Liu Erlong reached level 88 and was about to break through the title Douluo, the Blue Lightning Tyrannosaurus clan knew about this and immediately prepared to gather the power of the entire clan to help her break through. The letter clearly stated that the Blue Lightning Tyrannosaurus clan had a secret realm left when the clan was established. There were things there that would be very useful for her to improve her cultivation, but even the clan leader didn't know what they were. All the people who went to the sect to practice and break through the barriers in the past generations failed, but they were not on danger of life. This time, Liu Erlong was arranged by the sect to go and try. After all, she is the strongest soul master in the family besides Yu Yuanzhen. The time for breaking through the barriers is uncertain, but it will take at least a year, so during this period, the two will be separated again. The letter also explained that the Blue Lightning Tyrannosaurus X soul masters who went out recently have frequently encountered evil soul masters. Like the Seven Treasures Glazed sect, they have also realized that something is wrong with this matter. The two major sects are ready to discuss with the Spirit Hall how to deal with such things. Thank you for the 100 starting coins for living for Guyuna. Thank you for the 100 starting coins for Zuinitun Jiu. Thank you for the 100 starting coins for I'm sorry brother Dao Guang. Thank you for the 1,188 starting coins for Wangaiu Mingji. Thank you for the 2 monthly tickets from Qianhu. Thank you for the 2 monthly tickets from I'm sorry brother Dao Guang. Thank you for your support. Chapter 106 Kaleidoscope. 3 months later, Ling Yu had been here for half a year. During this time, apart from daily conversations with Douluo, there were only 2 things left for him, cultivation and sword practice. Now his soul power has reached level 40 in half a year, and his cultivation method has almost broken through the limit of bone forging. The small goal of swinging the sword 1,000 times was also completed 2 months ago. He once asked Douluo to help him test his strength. Under full strength, his strength has almost reached 25,000 kilograms. It is no exaggeration to say that such strength is comparable to the physical fitness of Soul Douluo. So he expected that the 4th soul ring should be a target of about 30,000 to 40,000 years, and it can be raised. However, spiritual soul beasts are rare, not to mention high-level soul beasts of tens of thousands of years. This time, it was also fortunate that Douluo, who lived in the Sunset Forest all year round, and the other party, the titled Douluo who used the Sunset Forest as his base camp, brought news, so that he set his target on a 50,000-year soul beast. On this day, Ling Yu sat cross-legged on a small hillside, facing the rising sun. The 2 Dragon Balls in his mind had shrunk by nearly 1/5. The spiritual power had also changed from the original small pond to a big river. 2 strange creatures comparable to the size of sharks were rushing in this river. The originally barren sea of consciousness had become full of vitality, with grass and flowers everywhere. His spiritual power had been nourished and strengthened by the 2 crystals of the Dragon King's spiritual consciousness in the past 6 months, and his spiritual power had increased again. Today, as if a blessing had come to his heart, Ling Yu felt that his Sharingan was finally about to usher in the 3rd evolution. The 3 Magatama in his eyes were constantly rotating at a very fast speed, and gradually connected into a circle. The spiritual power of the sea of spirituality was constantly surging, and the spiritual power of the river was constantly rushing. Boom! With a loud noise in his mind, a strange question suddenly came to his mind. Why did you become stronger? This answer was like a line of words, and it was like a thought, lingering in Ling Yu's heart for a long time and unwilling to dissipate. Yes. From the age of 3, he has been practicing until now, and 9 years have passed. Before the age of 6, he just wanted to become stronger to protect himself, and he just wanted to live up to the opportunity to live again. He didn't want to be just a supporting role, like all living beings, and be content with being ordinary. When he was 6 years old, the appearance of the evil soul master made him see for the first time what massacre was. It was the first time he saw someone eating a baby's head with a smile, and sucking the blood of women while chatting. They dismembered and devoured civilians, using them as food to become stronger. From then on, he swore that sooner or later, he would clean up these things that were worse than beasts, these scum. When he was 8 years old, his last relative in this world left. Although he also had several confidants and regarded them as relatives, from that day on, he no longer had an elder alive, leaving him alone wandering in this world, like a lonely ghost. The old man finally passed away peacefully. Ling Yu was raised by the old man for 6 years. But he only served the old man for 2 years. This is Ling Yu's lifelong pain. This was the first relative Ling Yu saw when he opened his eyes. Before leaving, he held Ling Yu's hand and recovered his past memories like a flash of light. His eyes were full of kindness and kindness. He could see nostalgia and reluctance in the old man's eyes, but more of it was relief, expectation, and regret. He didn't see Ling Yu standing on the top of the mountain, nor did he accompany Ling Yu into the palace of marriage. He had no worries in his life except for the village and the villagers, but a few years ago, he actually had a grandson. It was also that year that he decided to go to the Lost Grand Canyon to experience and hunt evil soul masters. He spent 2.5 years, with countless blood on his hands, and slaughtered nearly 90% of the outer evil soul masters. During that time, he also asked himself whether it was right to do this, and what was the difference between doing this and the evil soul master? But the answer he got made him feel no psychological pressure. Killing one person here can save thousands of people. Before leaving, the group of soldiers who silently guarded the canyon regardless of spring, summer, autumn or winter, regardless of winter or summer, the admiration in their eyes and the respect on their faces made Ling Yu feel sad. Compared with the son of the Spirit Hall who has not yet left the Spirit City, the news about him has been placed in the hands of various forces. This group of unknown soldiers are more worthy of the attention and support of the masses. They are the backbone of the Spirit Hall, and they are the guarantee of the millions of people on the Douluo continent. How many people can stand on the top of the mountain? Even if they run around all their lives, how many hard-working people can they take care of? If it weren't for thousands of such soldiers guarding the safety of all living beings and carrying the burden for them, where would there be a peaceful life for all living beings? It's not that they don't want to become stronger, nor do they want to protect more people, but manpower is limited. The achievements of this world are destined, and their achievements and strength are linked to their talents. There is no knowledge to change fate here, only talent to change life. But even so, there are still countless soldiers who are brave enough to sacrifice their lives and bring light to this world. Ling Yu really wants to call them the cutest people, but he is afraid that he is not qualified. He has not paid as much for the sentient beings here as they have. What qualifications does he have to make comments here? From just to prove that his life is not in vain to bring in light to all sentient beings, the belief in this is that he can't bear to see civilians being slaughtered by evil soul masters, and he also wants to protect his confidant. That's why he wants to become stronger, so he has to work hard, so he will fight hard. If he has to use a reason to explain, he would rather borrow a poem. When he climbs high, the world is wide, and the spring scenery of the world is calmly watched. Even if there is a strong wind rising from the ground, I will ride the wind and break the waves. I have my ideals, I have my goals, I have come to this world, then I am a person of this world. But I also have my beliefs and my principles. I don't want to see the toiling beings suffer again. I don't want to see the evil spirit masters slaughter the innocent, I don't want to see the catastrophe rise, and I don't want my future family and children to suffer. So I want to be the strongest. Boom. Thunder and lightning roared in the sky, and the light flashed. At this moment, Ling Yu suddenly stood up, his body straightened, his spine raised, and his robe moved with the wind. He looked at the sky and the earth. In this situation, he let out a long roar. Ling Yu, swear again, if the catastrophe comes, I will stand at the forefront and open the sky for all living beings. Unless I die and my will sinks, otherwise. As long as I am here, the mountains and rivers will be safe. Thunder and lightning struck. The next moment Ling Yu shouted out his oath. The sky was full of dark clouds and lightning, the wind and clouds changed, an array of warm and peaceful sunlight shone on him from the sky. He opened his eyes, which were filled with blood, as if he was destined to walk through mountains of corpses and seas of blood. The pattern of a six-pointed star appeared in his pupils, and under the sunlight, it was like a god in person. Mangekyo Sharingan, activated. Chapter 107 Golden-Eyed Demon Ape. In the Sunset Forest, a young man kept shuttling back and forth like a phantom. The young man had black hair and black eyes, and his long black hair was casually draped behind him, which made his already handsome face and extraordinary temperament more unrestrained and uninhibited. Ling Yu ran in the predetermined direction according to the clues given to him by Douluo. This time he did not let others accompany him, nor did he ask Douluo for help. He planned to hunt the soul beast with a fourth soul ring by himself. Since he opened the Mangekyo, his intuition told him that he did not have the so-called curse, but the power of these eyes still had room to increase. Ling Yu guessed that it might be because he absorbed the gold of living beings, which made his mental power extremely vital, and the consumed mental power could be restored very quickly. In addition, every cell in his body was now as dazzling as stars, and his physical vitality was extremely strong, so that his body could fully support the load of the Sharingan. Moreover, he also wanted to experiment with the power of his eyes. As his pace quickened, he ran towards the location of the soul beast he wanted to hunt, releasing his aura without any disguise. Soul beasts less than 10,000 years old would not have any intention of attacking under the shock of this aura. An hour later, Ling Yu observed the surrounding scene, combined with Douluo's clues, and whispered, "It's almost here. The soul beast should be nearby." The three Magatama Sharingan in his eyes opened instantly. With a growth of mental power, his survey range has now reached 1,500 meters. The distance will double when the Mangekyo is opened. Ling Yu kept observing the clues here, and soon, several huge footprints appeared in Ling Yu's sight. His eyes suddenly lit up, and he quickly chased in the direction of the footprints. This time, the soul beast he wanted to hunt was a 50,000-year-old golden mirror demon ape, which was a very peculiar soul beast. Although they were spiritual soul beasts, their strength was not weaker than soul beasts like the powerful demon ape. They were both offensive and defensive, and were a very comprehensive soul beast. Even many soul masters made comments on this soul beast. If it weren't for the fact that the Titan giant ape could use special abilities similar to soul master skills after reaching 100 years old, their position would definitely be shaken by the golden-eyed demon ape. From here, we can see that although his target soul beast this time is 50,000 years old, comparable to ordinary soul saints, their actual attack ability is not weaker than ordinary soul beasts of 70,000 or 80,000 years old. Because the soul beasts that can cultivate to this level, except for some soul beasts with great luck and great opportunities, the rest are almost all soul beasts with strong bloodlines. A few minutes later, when a snoring sound came into Ling Yu's ears, Ling Yu's eyes instantly flashed. He slowly approached without making any sound, and tried his best to restrain his breath. Gradually, a gorilla with a height of more than 5 meters, strong limbs, a big head, and golden hair appeared in front of him. At this time, the other party was sleeping on a boulder, but if you think that the other party is not aware of the movement around him, but choose to go up and kill the other party, then you will die without knowing how. The golden-eyed demon ape is very intelligent. Their IQ has always ranked first among ape soul beasts. This is not only related to their strong mental power, but also to their nature. The character of this soul beast is not as reckless and impulsive as the Titan giant ape. They like to use tricks to hunt prey, especially pretending to be asleep to lure some soul masters and soul beasts to attack them. Then they will use their own mental abilities to control the opponent's body and kill them. And in battle, this soul beast is very cautious. At the beginning of the battle, they will immediately use their own special skills to try to hit the enemy with one blow. Unlike the battles of ordinary soul beasts, they will not need to test. However, it is precisely because of this that their behavior is despised by ape soul beasts, and they are often resisted by other ape soul beasts, so that this soul beast almost lives alone. Looking at the golden giant ape pretending to sleep in front of him, Ling Yu did not take out the edgeless sword. He wanted to test his current strength. According to the 5-meter-tall giant in front of him, he should be about 53,000 years old, and his strength can completely match that of an ordinary low-level soul fighter. He opened his Sharingan, clenched his fists, stomped his feet, and rushed towards the giant ape. Boom! With a loud bang, the moment Ling Yu took action, the golden giant ape opened a pair of huge pupils that were exactly the same color as the hair on his body, and looked at the little man rushing towards him. Although Ling Yu's soul power was not very strong, the golden-eyed demon ape was not careless at all. His eyes flashed, and an invisible mental force quickly covered the field. HMPH, Ling Yu's body, which was rushing forward, suddenly stagnated, and his face showed a painful look. He knew that this was the most amazing soul skill of the golden-eyed demon ape, the Eye of Desire. Anyone who was hit by his mental soul skill would have a ball of desire fire burning from the inside out, which was hard to defend against. This was a powerful soul skill that caused damage from the inside out. Soul masters with lower mental power than the opponent could only wait to die. If Ling Yu had seen such a soul beast before he went to yin-yang eyes of ice and fire, he would have had no choice but to release his first soul skill and run away. But now his mental power has reached a level that can rival that of an ordinary soul fighter, and is definitely not inferior to this giant ape. He opened and blinked his eyes, and the 3 Magatama Sharingan instantly changed into a Mangekyo Sharingan. The extremely rich mental power fully wrapped the fire of desire burning in his body, and compressed it with force to extinguish it. Roar! But in the next moment, the golden-eyed demon ape saw that this villain actually endured his strongest soul skill and was only a little painful, and was not burned to ashes. At the same time as the difference in his eyes, his body suddenly jumped, and a bunch of huge arms smashed down towards Ling Yu. Damn it, Ling Yu's face was a little ugly. He didn't expect the soul skill of this soul beast to be so tricky. If he wanted to extinguish it, it would take at least some time. During this time, he couldn't even use his mental power, and could only suppress the abnormality in his body with all his strength. Gritting his teeth, he folded his arms around his waist, lowered his legs, and exerted force on his feet. He looked at the 2 fists above his head that were half the size of his body, and punched them. Boom! The 2 pairs of disproportionate fists collided, but the expected thing did not happen. Ling Yu took the opponent's full strength blow. Are you kidding? His current physical strength has reached 25,000 kilograms, and he has truly reached the limit of bone forging. He cannot grow at all. If he wants to increase his strength again, he can only break through to the next level, marrow washing. Although the power of the golden-eyed demon ape is also huge, it can even compete with a powerful demon ape of the same level, and is only one level lower than the Titan giant ape, but it is at most about the same as Ling Yu's current strength. It is simply a foolish dream to want to seriously injure Ling Yu with such power. It is also said that this is only a 50,000-year-old soul beast. If it reaches 60,000 or 70,000 years or even higher, Ling Yu may still have some concerns. Seeing the little man under him taking his full strength attack again, the giant ape's already cautious eyes even became a little stunned this time. He looked at Ling Yu in disbelief, then looked at his injured fist, his eyes full of confusion, and he doubted his ape life. Chapter 108 The Fourth Soul Skill. Ling Yu took advantage of the time when the other party was confused and quickly used his mental power to extinguish the fire of desire in his body. He looked at the other party with a long breath, his eyes were a little bright. Such a powerful soul skill, it was more powerful than his first soul skill. Very strong, he liked it. Let me test my current strength on you. Ling Yu stretched out his hand and quickly formed a seal on his hand, his chest bulged high. Fire style, storm dance, a huge spiral of flames rushed towards the giant ape quickly. At the moment the flame rushed, he wiped his hand towards the ring, and 200 shurikens appeared in the air in an instant. The stored lightning light on his arm lit up, like a sword rain, and the 200 shurikens quickly cut towards the other party. The giant ape felt the heat in front of him, and his pupils shrank suddenly. The next moment, he slammed his hands against the ground, and a huge stone was immediately lifted from the ground and blocked in front of him. Boom! After a loud noise, the stone shattered and the flame was offset. A sharp sound of air cutting came from above, and the giant ape showed a hint of mockery at the corner of his mouth. Then, the sound of metal colliding continued to sound in the forest. Ling Yu stared at the sparks that kept coming out of the other party's body, and said softly, "Sure enough, the power of magnetism is still too weak. It would be better if the power of lightning could be improved a little. Now it can only play a harassing role." Ling Yu waved his hands, and countless black shadows in the air kept stabbing at the other party's head, preventing the other party from using his spiritual soul skills, so that Ling Yu's actions were restricted. Roar! The other party obviously also felt Ling Yu's intention, and was also very annoyed by these shurikens flying everywhere. He slammed his fists on his chest several times, and the next moment, a strong spiritual wave burst out from his eyes. Buzz! An invisible wave sounded, and all the shurikens in the air were blocked by the opponent's spiritual wall in front, and they could not move forward at all. Seeing this, Ling Yu stopped rushing forward, staring at the opponent with his left eye, and then his pupils glared. Amaterasu, the black flames completely enveloped the giant ape's body in an instant, and shrill roars continued to come out of the other party's mouth, echoing in the forest. Feeling that his mental power was suddenly reduced, Ling Yu exhaled a breath of turbid air. Sure enough, the power of this pupil technique is indeed great, but it also consumes a lot of my mental power. This is an ability he awakened when he opened the main Gekkai of Sharingan, Amaterasu, the same ability as Sasuke in Uchiha Itachi. The strongest fire escape, Amaterasu, a flame that will not go out. Unless you also have a main Gekkai of Sharingan, or use a sealing technique, this flame will never go out, and it can still burn even in water. It can be called an unsolvable move. It's just that the speed is a bit slow, and it's not easy to hide a high-level soul master. Ling Yu looked at the giant ape in front of him who kept rolling on the ground, trying to extinguish the flames, with no joy or sadness in his eyes. As the other party continued to struggle, the black flames gradually burned on the ground, and in just a short while, it completely enveloped the area of 100 meters. Seeing that if this continued, it would probably cause a fire and cause unnecessary casualties. His right eye looked at the flame in front of him, and the next moment, as his mind moved, the flame quickly disappeared, leaving only the flame on the giant ape still burning. In less than a minute, under the huge heat and destructiveness of Amaterasu, the movement of the golden-eyed demon ape began to become weak, and the breath of life on its body began to gradually disappear. Ling Yu stood there and waited for another half a minute, until a circle of dark soul rings appeared on the other party's body. Ling Yu used his right eye to control the flame to disappear quickly. This is his second ability, Kagatsuchi. Able to change the form of black flames at will. In the future, this ability will be a perfect match with the Wu-Fang swordsmanship he is about to learn. Any enemy injured or touched by his sword energy will be instantly covered and burned by Amaterasu. Basically, if they are hit by this pupil technique, unless the enemy has some special means, they will only wait for death. In fact, he did not expect that the two abilities awakened by the Sharingan would be the same as those of the second pillar, but it was fine this way. Although Kamui was still the ability he wanted most, Kagutsuchi was indeed a good match with a Wu-Fang sword. The pupils returned to the three Mogatama Sharingan again, and Ling Yu walked towards the burnt body of the giant ape in front of him. Looking at the black soul ring above, Ling Yu immediately sat cross-legged and attracted the soul ring to his body. The soul ring energy belonging to the golden-eyed giant ape rushed towards his body in an instant, but the moment the energy entered his body, it was immediately crushed and shattered by his flesh cells and the scales on his chest, and the essence was compressed. A cool feeling continued to come from the eyes, and the spiritual power in the Sea of Spirit was also constantly growing. The Tai Chi soul core in the Danshin began to rotate rapidly, and drops of liquid energy began to drip from above into the energy aggregate below that had become a big river. At the moment when the energy just entered the body, with a barely audible sound, the barrier from the bone-forging realm to the marrow-washing realm was instantly broken. His blood began to become hot and boiling, the muscles on the surface of his body were constantly squirming, and the dark and smelly liquid began to overflow from his pores. The strength of his body also began to increase rapidly under this turbulence. The first marrow washing began. Along with the breathing in and out of his mouth and nose, the golden light on Ling Yu's body gradually shone. Roar. Suddenly, the roar of the giant ape sounded in his mind, and Ling Yu thought to himself, here it comes. Soul shock. This is the ability of soul beasts over 10,000 years old when absorbing soul rings. The remaining soul beast thoughts in the soul ring will cause great shock to the soul master's mental power and hinder the soul master's absorption. However, this remnant is like a moth to a flame in front of Ling Yu's huge mental power. The mental power like a river surged instantly, forming a tsunami-like huge wave, which directly dispersed the remnant of the giant ape. An hour later, when all the energy in the soul ring was successfully absorbed, Ling Yu looked at the magazines that had solidified into thick film on the surface of his body, and took out several large buckets of water from the ring with disdain and began to wash his body. After washing 3 or 4 times and feeling that there was no odor on his body, Ling Yu began to feel the changes in his body. First, the soul power. Although the 50,000-year soul ring has been compressed and refined, the huge energy still allows him to reach level 43. You must know that the 50,000-year soul ring is a soul ring that can only be absorbed by ordinary soul saints and soul Douluo. Now he has absorbed it at the level of soul zong. The energy contained in it can even allow a soul zong to directly break through to the soul king after absorbing it, and even have some surplus. Of course, the premise is that this soul zong has his mental power and physical fitness. The second is his mental power. After absorbing the opponent's residual thoughts, plus the mental power contained in the soul ring, his mental power like a river in his sea of consciousness has been improved again, and expanded by 2 points. If it was only comparable to the mental power of ordinary soul Douluo before, at this moment, he can already be comparable to the general high-level soul Douluo above level 85. Although the mental power is very strong, there is still some gap to be comparable to the title Douluo. There is also his fourth soul skill, the Eye of Desire. The skill that the golden-eyed demon ape used on him at the beginning caused him a lot of trouble. The effect of this soul skill is very powerful, and it burns from the inside out. The size and intensity of the flame are directly determined according to the soul master's desire. The fourth soul skill, Eye of Desire, single attack, the enemy irradiated by the spiritual power emitted from his eyes will have the fire of desire in his heart, burning the spirit and body from the inside out. Finally, it is the physical body. After absorbing the soul ring, his body has also undergone the first marrow washing. Not only does it make his meridians more resilient, but it also makes it wider and can accommodate more soul power. This will not only make his future soul skills more powerful, but also make his cultivation speed faster. After experiencing the feeling of marrow washing, Ling Yu realized that the initial formation of the spirit body in this realm that reaches the extreme is not like him now. All the pores are absorbing the energy of heaven and earth all the time, but it makes his body flawless and impeccable, reaching a flawless body. Let his body be extremely close to the energy of heaven and earth. Any energy that encounters his flesh will be absorbed, assimilated, and close to his flesh. This is different from his current body. Now he makes his body actively absorb the energy of heaven and earth. The speed is not fast, but it is durable. The latter is that the energy of heaven and earth actively drills into his body. Every move can trigger an energy storm. These are two different concepts. Moreover, after this marrow washing, his strength has increased by 20% again, which means that his physical strength has now reached 30,000 kilograms. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 109 Return. Looking at the charred corpse of the giant ape beside him, he formed a seal with his hands and slapped the ground. The corpse of the giant ape was quickly swallowed by this oil and sank into the ground. Every time he saw such a scene, every time he hunted a soul beast, he didn't know why, but he always felt an inexplicable sadness in his heart. Here, soul masters need to hunt living beings to advance. These so-called rules set by gods are really unbearable. He stretched his body a few times, and his bones kept crackling. His thin body contained earth-shaking power. Ling Yu didn't stay for too long, and started to quickly return to the yin-yang eye of ice and fire. Along the way, Ling Yu was thinking about the next plan. Because the body's adaptability to the yin-yang eye of ice and fire is already very high, although the speed of cultivation there is still faster than outside, but compared to the initial entry, the doubled cultivation speed has obviously dropped a lot. It's time to go back. Ling Yu looked at the shadows of the trees that were constantly retreating around him, and whispered softly, "After a while, when Erlong comes out of retreat, I will meet Tang San again, and recommend him to join the Blue Tyrant Academy with Flanders." As his pace quickened, it didn't take long before he passed through the poison array and entered the yin-yang eye of ice and fire. Ling Yu came to the side of the spring, sat on the ground, and thought about the ownership of the immortal grass. Liu Erlong had already taken the coxcomb and phoenix sunflower, and the strange chrysanthemum must be in the moon retreat. Bibi Dong had reached level 98, and she was only one level away from reaching the limit of Douluo. For her, Ling Yu really hadn't thought about what to give her. As for Natter, Ling Yu decided to give her the acacia heartbroken red. He had no doubt about the little girl's feelings for him. There were also senior sister Hulina and the others. Hulina was going to give him a Narcissus jade muscle bone. As for Yan, his martial soul was a dual attribute of fire and earth, which was not easy to choose. There was no choice but to give him a 9th grade purple Ganoderma to strengthen his foundation. Ziyu said that the black jade bamboo was just right. This thing could just make his martial soul sharper. As for the Shrek people, he had also considered it. Immortal grass was impossible. They were not familiar with it to that extent. He also found a suitable herb for the evil fire problem of Ma Hongjian, the fat man, that is, the fire scale grass. This Chinese herbal medicine must grow in the extremely high temperature of the dragon creature's death place. Coincidentally, he found one here. Although it can't make his martial soul evolve into a real fire phoenix, it can make his evil fire controllable and won't make him suffer from the burning desire. As for Xiaoyao, he was going to give her a Peiyuan grass, which was also a precious herb that was not inferior to the 9th grade purple mushroom. It could greatly help him consolidate his foundation and speed up his cultivation. Although it was not as abnormal as the 8-petal fairy orchid, it also had great benefits. At least before level 60, his cultivation speed would not be weaker than that of an ordinary strong attack system battle soul master. Daimyo Bei, Ling Yu has not yet decided what to give him, mainly because this person is too unpredictable. Although he has a cheerful personality and is usually very generous, his code of conduct really makes Ling Yu dare not look directly at him. And Ning Rongrong, the little princess of the 7 Treasures Glazed Tile sect, her treatment will depend entirely on the subsequent negotiations between him and the 7 Treasures Glazed Tile sect. If successful, then he can naturally help her, but if not, then there is nothing he can do. He will give such immortal grass to the title Douluo of the Spirit Hall to help them advance, and will not give it to her. As for other people like Tang San and Xiao Wu, they are not within his consideration. After figuring this out, Ling Yu continued to sit cross-legged and practice. The next day, in the early morning, after Ling Yu felt a breath of Douluo coming, he stopped practicing and walked towards him. "Ling Yu, is there something?" Seeing Ling Yu walking towards him, Douluo asked, "But is there anything I can help you with?" He thought that the other party wanted him to help hunt the fourth soul ring. A few days ago, he felt that the other party's soul power had reached level 40, but after giving the other party a message, he didn't think much about it. No matter how hard he thought, he didn't consider the direction of Ling Yu killing the 50,000-year-old soul beast alone. Ling Yu clasped his fists heavily towards Douluo and said softly, "Senior, I'm leaving." Douluo's face was calm, but his eyes suddenly shrank. During this period, although the relationship between the two did not reach the close friendship between Tang San and him in the previous life, Douluo did treat him as a rare genius junior. "Well, it's good to leave. You can't stay in this small place forever. You need to go out and experience more." Douluo turned around and made a faint sound. Ling Yu reached out and took out a strange-looking flower from his ring. The flower was green all over, and there were several green patterns on the flower path, like a giant snake entwined on it, which looked very poisonous. "Please accept this, Senior. This is a little gift from me." Looking at the green flower in the other's hand, Douluo asked in confusion, "What is this?" "This thing is called snake absolute flower. It looks like a plant with a high toxin content, but in fact, this flower does not have any toxins at all. It has only one function." Ling Yu handed the snake absolute flower to Douluo and said softly, "That is the purity of the pure snake martial spirit. Senior naturally does not need this. After all, your martial spirit has reached the level of the Violent Snake King, but your granddaughter should need this. This is the last gift from me before I leave." Douluo took the flower, took a deep look at Ling Yu's handsome face, nodded without saying thank you. Ling Yu clasped his fists to the other party again, and walked towards the outside of the yin-yang eye of ice and fire without any hesitation. Douluo was left standing behind him, looking at his back. His eyes seemed to be making a decision. When Ling Yu walked out of the Sunset Forest, he walked directly towards the Wuhan Hall of Xiandao City. He left a letter there, asking Sareth to give it to her once she knew that Liu Erlong of the Blue Lightning Tyrannosaurus Rex family had come out of seclusion. After doing this, he directly carried a long sword on his back, took a carriage, and headed towards Soto City. This time he was only at level 32 when he came out. But now he not only obtained the fourth soul ring, but also raised his level to level 43, which can be said to be a big change. Moreover, not only has his martial soul evolved again, his body has been greatly improved, and he has also condensed a soul core. It took him 3 months to upgrade to a higher level before. Now that he has reached the level of Soul Sect, he needs more soul power for each upgrade, and the time required should be longer. But because of the soul core, as well as the body's marrow washing, the fairy grass has greatly improved his body's strength, which has greatly increased his cultivation speed. Not only will it not make his cultivation time longer, but it will become shorter. According to his current cultivation speed, Ling Yu estimates that he can upgrade to a higher level in about 2.5 months at most. This is because his current body's demand for soul power has increased a lot again, and the energy that can be stored is reduced by 10% to 20% compared to before. Otherwise, he feels that he can upgrade to a higher level in more than a month at most. Chapter 110 Conversation with Ning Rongrong. A few days later, Ling Yu took a carriage to the Wuhan Temple in Soto City. After settling the carriage, he walked towards Shrek Academy outside Soto City with a long sword on his back. After half a year, he came to Shrek Academy again. Ling Yu sensed the atmosphere in the academy and strode directly to the cafeteria. It was noon, and several people were sitting in the cafeteria eating lunch. When everyone saw Ling Yu's figure in the cafeteria, they all showed surprise. Before Ling Yu could say hello, a familiar figure rushed directly into his arms. Nair, looking at the girl who was hugging him tightly in his arms, Ling Yu smiled and said, "You've grown taller again. After not seeing each other for half a year, everyone has changed more or less. Daimyo Bei has grown taller, Mo Hongjin has become fatter, Oscar is no longer the bearded man he used to be, and looks like a gentleman. And Ning Rongrong, this girl has also become more beautiful." However, the girl in the silver dress in his arms was the one who had changed the most. He didn't know why, but when he saw Nair again, he always felt that the purple in her pupils was a little deeper. Her temperament became more mysterious, and her aura was more powerful than before. Could it be that this little girl had also had an adventure during this period? Before Ling Yu could think too much, Nair came out of his arms, but her eyes were a little complicated and sad. Ling Yu didn't notice her eyes, and reached out to hold the girl's wrist and walked to the dining table nearby. Looking at the 8 dishes on the table, 6 were soul beast meat, and the other 2 were also expensive vegetarian dishes. Ling Yu nodded. It seemed that the gold soul card he gave to Flanders was indeed spent on the right place. If you eat these soul beast meats every day, over time, the soul master's body will become more resilient, and the speed of cultivation will be greatly improved, which can be said to have many benefits. Brother Yu, why did you go for so long this time? The little fat man asked with a smile. Although Ma Hongjin is a bit lustful, he is also loyal. In the past 6 months, the food in the academy has become so good, all thanks to Ling Yu. The little fat man was very grateful for this. A friend needs me to help him with something, so it took a little longer. After saying this, Ling Yu clearly felt that although Ning Rongrong's eyes were still shining at him, her mouth twitched slightly. Could it be that this little girl knows my identity? Did the old fox Ning Fengzi tell her? In fact, he was a little confused about why Ning Rongrong was sent to Shrek Academy a year in advance. It is impossible that Ning Fengzi would let Ning Rongrong, the eldest lady, send her here because he is here? There must be something he doesn't know. Hey, Ling Yu, you went to Xiandao City this time, right? Just when he was still thinking about the possibility that Ning Rongrong would know his identity, Ning Rongrong suddenly asked him, is it true? Ling Yu nodded and picked up a piece of soul beast meat and started eating. Seeing that the other party didn't want to pay attention to her, Ning Rongrong said angrily, Humph, I wanted to tell you something, but seeing you like this, I won't tell you. Let you guess it yourself. Ling Yu immediately looked up at her. Ning Rongrong's cheeks turned red when he saw his handsome face and big eyes as deep as the night sky. What's wrong? The girl blushed and said in a stuttering tone, who told you not to pay attention to me just now? Oscar sighed when he saw this scene, but quickly adjusted his mood. Ling Yu was a little helpless, but his eyes indicated that he would talk outside after dinner. Ning Rongrong looked at him again with a red face, and then looked at Natter who was eating seriously at the side, and a barely perceptible light flashed in her eyes. After the meal, Daimyo Bei walked to Ling Yu and said with a smile, Ling Yu, do you want to go out for some fun? Don't worry, I'll treat you. Hearing the other party's words, Ling Yu hadn't answered yet. Mo Hongjin had already excitedly said, Boss Dai, what about me? You? Daimyo Bei said with a strange look in his eyes, don't you dislike going to high-end places? Mo Hongjin scratched his head, look at what you said, if you have money, who wouldn't like a better place? I'm not forced by the situation. Seeing this, Ling Yu shook his head slightly and said, I won't go. Natter has something to ask me later. You guys go? These two are really hopeless in this regard. Daimyo Bei nodded suddenly, and when he heard Natter's name, a trace of fear flashed in his eyes, and then he hurriedly pulled Ma Hongjin to walk outside. Ling Yu, who was a little confused about the other party's appearance, didn't think much and walked towards the place he had agreed with Ning Rongrong. In a small forest outside the village, Ning Rongrong was standing with her hands behind her back, drawing circles on the ground with one foot. Her face was slightly flushed, and she seemed to be looking forward to being alone with Ling Yu. Speak. Ling Yu walked in front of the girl and asked softly, what do you want to tell me? Hearing the other party's casual tone, Ning Rongrong snorted coldly, you are from the spirit hall, right? Without waiting for Ling Yu to answer, she hurriedly continued, don't try to lie to me. I saw you on the morning you left half a year ago. You walked out of the spirit hall, leading a carriage pulled by 2 flaming horses, and the head of the Soto City Spirit Hall was groveling. Ling Yu nodded and said lightly, so what? How? Ning Rongrong pointed at Ling Yu and said, don't think I'm stupid. With your talent, the entire spirit hall can make an impression on me. The only one who fits you is the Holy Sun canonized by the spirit hall 6 years ago. Ling Yu looked at the other party in surprise. When did this little girl's brain open up? She was just like a silly and innocent person before. And although the two of them didn't meet many times and talked for a short time, she didn't have the kind of willful temper that she remembered, otherwise she wouldn't have been able to endure it here for half a year. Seeing the surprised look in the man's eyes, Ning Rongrong straightened her neck, humph. And I've already talked to Dad in a letter, he asked me to tell you something. The 7 Treasures Glazed Tile Sect, the Blue Lightning Tyrannosaurus Rex Sect, and the Spirit Hall are preparing to establish an anti-evil Soul Master alliance. It is said that because evil Soul Masters have appeared frequently on the continent recently, the strength of the 2 major sects alone is completely unable to cope with it. Because of this incident, the 7 Treasures Glazed Tile Sect has lost a lot of Soul Masters. Speaking of this, the girl's face was a little angry. Dad also suggested to the Emperor of the Xiandao Empire to send troops to capture the evil soul masters, but was rejected by the other party. She looked up at Ling Yu, who had a calm expression on the side, and said, "Do you think this old emperor is stupid? He doesn't even think about what kind of person an evil soul master is. This is a bloodthirsty person who will massacre soul masters and civilians to enhance his strength. Such a thing can be ignored." Ling Yu ignored the girl's reaction. He was not surprised by the decision of Emperor Zhu Yi. In the eyes of the other party, the Spirit Hall is the biggest threat. If the Spirit Hall and the two major sects are responsible for this matter, it can not only weaken the strength of these major forces, but also enhance the strength of their own empire in disguise. Moreover, although the evil spirit masters have been rampant recently, they have not threatened Xiandao City after all. Emperor Zhu Yi, who has entered an old age, likes stability and balance the most. In addition, the other party's status and the usual habits of the nobles, they don't care about the lives of civilians at all. Chapter 111 Silver Dragon King. Ling Yu looked at Ning Rongrong and asked, "Then what? It can't be just this one thing." "I already knew about this." "Of course not, there is one more thing." Ning Rongrong glanced at this unromantic man angrily. "My father said that he learned from the Pope of the Spirit Hall that your body is very strong and you pay great attention to training in this area. It just so happens that some time ago, he got a rare treasure that can be of great benefit to the increase of the body. Also, my 12th birthday will be in a few months. Dad said that he would let me take you there at that time. He said he wanted to give this thing to you and wanted to have a chat with you." By the way, Ling Yu frowned slightly. Ning Fengzi wanted to give him something. This might not be a weasel wishing a happy new year to the chicken. This old fox must have done this for some other reasons. But he didn't refuse. "Okay, I'll accompany you to the Seven Treasures Glazed sect after a while. It just so happens that I also want to have a good chat with your father." Speaking of this, Ling Yu's eyes were a little deep. Without paying any more attention to Ning Rongrong's shy look, he turned around and walked directly to his room. Ning Rongrong was still happy that the other party was willing to attend their birthday party, but when she looked up, she found that the other party was gone. She stamped her feet in anger and couldn't help shouting, "You are an idiot who doesn't understand romance, you big blockhead." Ling Yu walked into the room. At this time, Natter was already sitting on the sofa quietly waiting for him. Ling Yu smiled and walked in front of the other party, stretching out his hand to hold the other party's palm. But who knew that the other party would immediately retract his hand, raise a pair of purple eyes, and her expression was full of complexity. "You are not Natter, who are you?" Seeing the other party's eyes, Ling Yu immediately realized that this was definitely not Natter. He knew how clingy and green tea Natter was usually. Although the girl in front of him looked exactly like Natter, the difference in personality was too great. He stood up instantly, and asked with a cold and ferocious face, "Tell me, who are you? What did you do to Natter?" At this point, his eyes instantly turned into a Mangekyou Sharingan, and a strong evil aura emanated from him, covering the entire room. The girl stood up from the sofa, looking at the fierce appearance of the boy, and her majestic aura directly suppressed the aura emitted by Ling Yu. "Huh?" Before Ling Yu could be surprised at the opponent's strength, the sword spirit's surprised voice suddenly came in his mind. "What is this? How could she?" Ling Yu looked at the girl who was staring at him, and asked hurriedly in his heart, "Sword spirit, do you know what happened to Natter? This is your sister." The sword spirit's tone was a little puzzled, but he has another identity, the Lord of Soul Beasts, the Silver Dragon King. Ling Yu's pupils suddenly shrank, and his mouth suddenly opened wide. "Are you kidding? My Natter is the Silver Dragon King? The half of the Dragon God?" He looked extremely shocked. The sword spirit had introduced the identity of the Silver Dragon King to him, but Natter was so shy. How could she be the Silver Dragon King? No mistake. It's her. If I hadn't felt the aura she released just now, I wouldn't have recognized her, the sword spirit said affirmatively. But I remember that her injuries were extremely serious. Even with the treatment of the Lake of Life, it should take at least tens of thousands of years to recover. Why now? Ling Yu's eyes suddenly shrank, and he reached out to touch the scales on his chest. At this moment, he seemed to think of something. "I know." Just when Ling Yu realized something, the sword spirit suddenly said, "I know what happened." Originally, her injuries had not healed, so she sealed her consciousness, leaving only the consciousness of a girl who knew nothing, that is, your sister. But now, for some unknown reason, the other party's injuries have almost recovered, but it will take some time to readapt to the current strength. After all, She has been sleeping for hundreds of thousands or millions of years before. Ling Yu's eyes flashed with a little realization. If this is the case, then it is clear. But he immediately realized that something was wrong and said in panic, "Doesn't it mean? Did Natter's consciousness get devoured by the other party?" "It's not considered devouring." Ling Yu breathed a sigh of relief. If Natter disappeared, it would be a huge blow to him. This is the sister he has been with and taken care of for several years, although it is more appropriate to describe their relationship as a couple now. Although it's not devoured, it should be fused. She is Natter, Natter is her. It's not devouring. What Natter experienced with you before is now the same as what she experienced personally, so it's not devouring. Ling Yu listened to the sword spirit's words and stopped talking. He looked up and looked at the girl in front of him with complicated eyes. Now his mind was in a mess. The sister he had been with for several years, the girl who had now turned into a confidant, actually told me that it was the Silver Dragon King, a soul beast? Are you Natter, or someone else? When he asked this question, his tone was a little trembling. The girl still looked at him with complicated eyes. He said in a familiar voice, "I have always been Gyuna." Ling Yu continued to ask, "Then you? Are you my sister or the Silver Dragon King?" The girl's pupils shrank deeply. She was a little surprised that Ling Yu could guess his identity. But when she thought of the unfathomable aura on the other person, she was relieved. "Both," the girl thought for a while and said to Ling Yu, "You don't have to worry about whether my consciousness is Natter or the Silver Dragon King. We are one." Ling Yu's face was a little complicated. He didn't know how he should deal with Natter's sudden change. He tried to walk to Gyuna's side and saw that she was trembling slightly when she approached him. He tried to stretch out his hand and pretended to hug her. Seeing that her cheeks were red and her lips moved slightly, but she didn't refuse, Ling Yu's eyes were happy. It seems that although another part of his memory has awakened, Natter is still Natter. He hugged the girl tightly, rested his chin on her shoulder, and whispered, "Natter, let me give you something." The girl was already feeling hot from being hugged by him, and nodded in confusion. Seeing this, Ling Yu took out a beautiful pink flower from his ring. The strange thing was that this flower actually grew on a black stone. This flower is called similar heartbroken red. It is the supreme among the immortal products. It can bring back the dead and turn bones into flesh. It is the gift I brought to you from the outside this time. When picking this flower, you must think of your beloved in your heart, be sincere, and drop a drop of blood on the petals. If you are a little bit indecisive, even if you spit blood and die, you can't think of picking the flower. After the flower is taken, as long as it is with its owner, it will never wither. The stone under the flower is called Wuju. If it is forcibly destroyed, this acacia heartbroken red will also lose all its medicinal power. Ling Yu told the other party how to take the flower. Gyuna looked at the boy beside her with deep eyes. In fact, the memory of the Silver Dragon King is very simple. After the death of the dragon god, her consciousness awakened, but because she was seriously injured, she could only choose to escape, recover from her injuries, and wait for revenge. Therefore, her memory only has the consciousness after the death of the dragon god, and she does not have too many memories. She was in a deep sleep for hundreds of thousands of years afterwards. She had no idea about the outside world and could only vaguely hear about it from Emperor Tian. It can be said that before Natter, her memory was as simple as a child. When she decided to come to the human world, the memories of these years were more than her previous memories. After the fusion, she could also feel the deep feelings she had for the man in front of her. It was a kind of unforgettable love. It was hard to imagine what this young man did to make the other party so devoted and unswerving. But during this period of time, after she merged her memories, it can be said that she is now Natter, but she has an additional consciousness of chatting with Emperor Tian and being seriously injured. Everything they have experienced and done in the past, after the memory fusion, means that what they experienced before is what she did and what she experienced. All the feelings, all the emotions at that time, were equivalent to what she experienced personally. Chapter 112, Distorted Rules. Gyuna took the flower from the other party, and kept thinking about what she and the other party had experienced. Finally, she suddenly spat a mouthful of blood on the flower. In just a moment, the flower swayed and fell from the stone, landing in the woman's hand. Holding the big pink flower, the girl's eyes were particularly gentle, and the look she gave Ling Yu was no longer complicated, but a look that Ling Yu was familiar with. That was the look Liu Erlong and Bibi Dong had when they looked at him. "Natter, eat it quickly," Ling Yu said excitedly. "This flower will definitely increase your strength." The girl shook her head gently, looked at Ling Yu, and after thinking for a while, she asked, I am a soul beast, do you mind? After hearing this, Ling Yu's eyes were a little complicated. But he still said seriously, it is impossible to say that I don't mind at all. After all, my sister who I have been with for several years is actually the half of the dragon god. This sudden change at this time makes me a little confused. Gu Yuna's body shook violently, and she couldn't help but step back a few steps. Her eyes began to redden, but she still held back tears. Seeing the other person's look, Ling Yu hurriedly said, don't be anxious, listen to me first. Seeing this, the girl raised her red eyes and looked at him tightly, waiting for his answer. He stared into the girl's eyes and said seriously, do you remember the promise I made to you? The girl nodded, but her eyes were still very rosy, her lips were tightly pursed, and she looked like a punching bag. You asked me what I would do if you had enemies and they wanted to hurt you, Ling Yu said seriously. I didn't realize it before, but now that I realize that the person who might hurt you is the god of the god realm, I will definitely stop them from doing so. The 6-year relationship between us is not fake, so I only know that you are my sister. No matter what other identities you have, as long as you don't do anything that hurts the world, my oath will still be the same. If they dare to hurt you, they must first destroy my body and will, otherwise, as long as I am there, you will be safe. There were 2 tear marks on the girl's face. She rushed to Ling Yu excitedly and hugged him tightly. But, brother, I am the Silver Dragon King, I must be responsible for my people. What if I want to take revenge on humans? Ling Yu nodded and said, I know your duty. You want to seek a future hope for soul beasts. I know I can understand it. But please promise me not to hurt innocent humans. Human soul masters hunt soul beasts to advance. This is against the law. It is not entirely the fault of soul masters. Ling Yu looked at Gu Yuna sincerely and continued, it is not realistic for you to change this phenomenon alone in the current huge god realm, so we need to find a way. We need to become stronger to break this rule. Ling Yu said this very seriously. He also hunted several soul rings and was deeply touched by this aspect. A soul beast, who has lived for tens of thousands of years, hundreds of thousands of years, and hundreds of thousands of years, will be hunted in the end. Soul beasts that have never done anything bad in their lives are finally forced to choose to become soul rings. Taoism says that the law of nature, in action and governance, the world has laws and rules, all creatures follow the rules, then everything will be better. But here, the gods change the rules at will, making soul masters and soul beasts fight each other, and only through hunting can they advance. As a result, soul masters become more brutal, soul beasts become more scarce, and even one day they will become extinct. Buddhists say to put down the butcher knife, but here everyone is holding a knife in their hands all the time. Confucianism says that the world is one. But here, only talent and blood determine everything. The views of Taoism, Buddhism, and Confucianism on the world are not applicable here. It can be seen how distorted and deformed the laws of this world are. Brother, why are you helping me so much? You are a human. Why do you want to help us soul beasts? Natter asked the doubts in her heart. Ling Yu touched the girl's hair and said softly, my grandfather once told me that if people don't respect me, I have no talent, and if I don't respect people, I have no virtue. If people don't tolerate me, I am incompetent, and if I don't tolerate people, I am boundless. If people don't help me, I am inactive, and if I don't help people, I am unkind. He looked into the girl's big purple eyes and smiled. In my eyes, ordinary soul beasts are naturally not human, but soul beasts that are more than thousands of years old can be regarded as human, that is, highly intelligent creatures. They just don't have human bodies, but have souls similar to humans. Such creatures are equal. I want to tell you something. When you can't change the rules, you must learn to adapt to the rules. When you are strong enough to change the rules, you can bloom yourself and bring hope and light. Gu Yuna nodded as if she understood, and Ling Yu didn't explain too much. He believed that one day, the other party would be able to understand this truth. You know so much. Gu Yuna held the flower in her hand, smiling. I feel like I can understand every word you say, but I don't understand it clearly when I want to really understand it. Ling Yu didn't say much, but asked, Nair, don't you absorb this flower? Although you are a divine beast, this flower should also bring you a lot of benefits. After hearing this, Nair shook her head and smiled. I know, but I always feel that letting this flower stay with me will have a greater effect. Ling Yu didn't deliberately ask for this. Since she wanted to do this, then let it be. Gu Yuna was in a good mood at this time. Although she always believed in the other party in her heart, When she really said it out loud, she realized how nervous she was. She leaned tightly in the man's arms, and couldn't help thinking in her heart that it was fortunate that this was her brother. If it were someone else, he would definitely not be like her brother, fair, kind, and responsible. If people don't help me, I'm useless. If I don't help people, I'm not kind. This sentence is really well said. Gu Yuna held Ling Yu's hand and smiled happily. Thank you, brother. The two stayed in the room for a while again. Ling Yu drove her back to his room, sat cross-legged on the bed, and began to practice. Boy, what you just said, did your grandfather tell you? The sword spirit asked with some doubt. Isn't your grandfather an ordinary person? How high is his awareness? This awareness is far ahead of those gods in the god realm. Ling Yu curled his lips and said nothing. Seeing that Ling Yu didn't answer, the sword spirit didn't ask any more questions, but just said, the conversation between you and that little girl today reminded me of something, and I think it's necessary to tell you. What is it? Ling Yu asked doubtfully. The sword spirit's tone became a little serious. Although I have to admit that I don't like the gods in the god realm very much, but if that plane wants to invade, it will be really difficult to win without their help. What do you mean? After hearing what the other party said, Ling Yu was a little confused. What do you mean without their help? Aren't they in the sky? The sword spirit said helplessly. What I mean is, when I was sealed, I realized that they were planning something. There is a very special race in the enemy plane. They are born with special attributes. After everyone reaches adulthood, they will have the combat power of Soul Douluo level, and the best ones will have the combat power of Title Douluo. As early as when I was sealed, I realized that they seemed to be preparing to sacrifice this race, causing time and space turbulence, and sweeping away the god realm. At that time, they can launch an invasion unscrupulously. Ling Yu's eyes shrank suddenly. Then why not tell the god realm about this? The sword spirit sighed. It's useless. The time and space turbulence has already begun for a long time. I was already sealed at that time. It's just that there is still some time before it sweeps across the god realm. Even if I notify them now, what does it matter? They still need to work together to deal with it. Moreover, I estimate that the god realm should have noticed it by now. Alice, it depends on whether they can escape this disaster. Chapter 113 Sword Heart. After hearing the words of the sword spirit, Ling Yu took a breath of cold air. He didn't expect the situation to be so urgent that the other party actually used such means. Alice, if the god realm cannot withstand this time and space turbulence, I don't know if the inheritance of the gods left here will be useful. Unless many gods who left their inheritance here in the god realm leave their divine power clones here and leave their own god positions, it will be really difficult to face the attack of the enemy plane. Ling Yu's face was also a little gloomy. In this case, he needed to urge danger to obtain the inheritance of the Rakshasa god as soon as possible. And the city of slaughter, he also had to go there as soon as possible. Sword spirit, when can I get your swordsmanship initiation? Thinking of this, Ling Yu asked the sword spirit without affront in his heart. Your mental strength is almost there now, but to be on the safe side, I won't let you completely imitate my path. You must understand your sword heart. You must understand why you hold the sword. Use your own sword heart to embrace my sword path. Only in this way can you further transcend. Ling Yu nodded, and understood. It seems that he must focus more on practicing sword in the future. From today on, when you practice sword, you must silently recite this sentence in your heart. Why do I hold the sword? When your consciousness is in chaos, you are not far from success. Ling Yu nodded again, sat cross-legged on the bed and began to practice. In fact, Ling Yu did not think this idea was difficult. He had already understood the reason for holding the sword. All he needed was the formation of the sword heart. The blurred figure in the Wufang sword looked at Ling Yu's hard work, his eyes full of relief and expectation. In the evening, the bell of the academy rang. Ling Yu opened his eyes and walked towards the academy grounds. When he arrived here, Dai Mubei and the others had already arrived. Ningrongrong pouted her lips when she saw Ling Yu, and glanced aside, looking like she didn't want to see you. Oh? Xiaoyu, you're back. Zhao Wuji smiled happily when he saw Ling Yu. He hadn't seen this boy who suited his taste very well in the academy for a while, and he actually felt a little uncomfortable. Okay, I called you here to let you continue with yesterday's homework. Flanders glanced at Ling Yu, nodded slightly, and continued, I said yesterday that one of the conditions for you to graduate from Shrek is to get the Silver Fighting Spirit badge in the Soto City Great Fighting Spirit Arena. As for the rules, I won't continue to describe them here. Okay, you guys should set off quickly. By the way, Ling Yu, you can choose to go or not, after all, your strength is beyond the scope. Ling Yu nodded. The Great Fighting Spirit Arena? In his eyes, it was just a group of house-playing games. Soul Masters who had not experienced killing could only hone their proficiency in fighting skills in such an environment. Then I won't go. Ling Yu nodded to Natter, said hello to Zhao Wuji and Flanders, and went back to his room. During this period, he had to spend all his time practicing swordsmanship, and he had no time to deal with the tricks of sparring. With his current strength, Soul Masters below the Soul Saint level might not even be able to break his defense, so there was no point in fighting. Flanders did not refuse. After all, from Zhao Wuji's words and the traces of battle left on the field that day, we can see how strong he is. Dai Mubei and others looked at Ling Yu with envy, and could only walk towards the great soul fighting field helplessly. Only Gu Yuna looked at Ling Yu with some doubts. Why did she feel that her brother seemed to be worried? Ling Yu came directly to a small hill not far from Shrek Academy with his long sword on his back. Standing on a huge rock on the top of the mountain, he held the sword without a blade and kept slashing forward, thinking in his heart, why do I hold a sword? In fact, he understood this question as early as the day when the Sharingan evolved, his way, his goal. He wants to open the sky for all living beings, bring safety to his loved ones, and correct the twisted rules of this world. As the longsword in his hand swung, Ling Yu's belief became more and more firm. His eyes were fixed on the front, watching the trajectory left by the longsword in his hand in the air. Buzz! An inexplicable vibration suddenly echoed in his mind, and the feeling of blessing came to his heart again. Ling Yu found himself in a dark space. As he took steps, a ray of light suddenly appeared in front of him. He increased his speed and kept running towards the enemy of the light. For some reason, along the way, his mind always flashed the scene of his vow and determination of the target. As the pictures flashed before his eyes, Ling Yu exhaled, with sharp eyes and steady steps. He stretched out his hand to touch the light in front of him, and then his arm moved and retracted, and a golden long sword that looked almost exactly like the Wu Fang sword appeared in his hand. Boy, since you have understood the sword heart, take it. My life, my sword. In Ling Yu's surprised eyes, a purple sword without a blade appeared again in the dim and chaotic space. The two swords, which looked exactly the same, seemed to be attracted by something and gradually merged together. Boom! Ling Yu felt as if his mind was struck by lightning and bombarded by thunder. In just a moment, his eyes became a little dull. Boy, you must bear it and hold on. I used to hold a long sword and opened the sky for this world for hundreds of thousands of years. This time, I hope you can open an eternal sky. The figure of the sword spirit became more blurred, and his tone was ethereal. After 200 years of practicing swordsmanship, it will all be in vain. My sword is handed over to you. The space in front of Ling Yu's eyes was constantly rotating, and the terrifying dizziness made his eyes a little scattered. When the surrounding movement disappeared, when he opened his eyes again, he found that he had changed. He became a young man wearing linen clothes and cloth shoes. He was like a hidden soul inside the young man, able to clearly feel the feelings and mood of the young man's every move. Ling Yu knew that this body should be Wu Feng. Now he was like a bystander who could empathize with him. He could not control the other party's thoughts and actions, and could only feel it silently. Looking at the young man's appearance at this time, he was not very handsome, but he was very sunny. His smile was naturally friendly. Judging from the other party's appearance and the fluctuations of his aura, he should have reached the level of title Douluo at this time. Ling Yu looked up at the sky following the seamless perspective, and the scene in front of him completely shocked him. The sky was full of cracks, and you could vaguely see several beams of light that were shining like meteors constantly colliding. Is this the battle in the God Realm? Chapter 114 Wu Feng's Memory. Wu Feng held a longsword in his hand, just glanced at the strange scene above his head, turned around and continued walking. Ling Yu then realized that the place where he appeared was covered with snow, and there were white snowflakes everywhere. The world around him was nothing but this color. Seeing this scene, it seemed as if a person's body and mind became transparent. This is the far north. Ling Yu had some impression of this place. Only the far north could have such a place like a white world on the Douluo continent, coupled with the extremely low temperature here. Wu Feng seemed to have no feeling at all about the low temperature here. He was wearing a linen shirt, a pair of cloth shoes, holding a longsword in his hand, and walking here quietly. Where is my Tao? What is my sword? Ling Yu listened to Wu Feng like a machine, repeating a sentence every few steps, as if he had no other goal except this matter. He watched Wu Feng walking non-stop, swinging his sword in the snow from time to time, and his every move was full of the elegance of a swordsman, and countless chic. Although Ling Yu practiced sword for a short time, everything Wu Feng did during this period seemed to be done by himself. His understanding of the sword and the confusion about the sword in his hand were completely like his own personal experience. When he was hungry, Wu Feng ate dry food, when he was thirsty, he drank snow water, and when he was tired, he meditated. Such boring days lasted for half a year. Ling Yu, who was a bystander in Wu Feng's body, at this moment, watching the other party swinging the sword, his eyes also became like a swordsman, sharp and sharp. Until one day, when Wu Feng was practicing sword, he encountered two creatures. Wu Feng held the long sword in his hand, standing there without joy or sadness, looking at the girl in front of him who was about 8 or 9 years old, wearing a snow-white long skirt, revealing a pair of white and tender feet stepping on the snow. The girl's skin was really white, just like the white snow on the surrounding ground, flawless and transparent. But beside the girl was a small green scorpion. The small scorpion was about the size of Wu Feng's palm, and it kept following the girl's feet. Such a pair really surprised Wu Feng. 100,000-year-old soul beast transformed? No, it's not transformed. Transformed soul beasts don't have such a strong aura. Wu Feng pulled out a purple sword, stared at the girl in front of him and said, "Legend has it that there is a creature in the far north. His appearance is no different from humans, but he is a pet of nature with beautiful scenery." Wu Feng raised his sword and pointed at the girl, and said lightly, "It's you. Ice and Snow Girl." The girl seemed to be frightened by Wu Feng's aura. She looked at the man in front of her who exuded an even stronger aura than her, and said softly, "I'm not here to fight you. I'm just attracted by your sword." Sword? Wu Feng glanced at the artifact in his hand and said to the girl, "Do you understand swords?" The girl shook her head. "I don't, but I feel your sword is very strong. When you swing the sword, I can feel the sharp aura of your sword from dozens of miles away." Wu Feng didn't speak, but he still put down his sword, glanced at the man and the scorpion behind him again, turned and walked deeper into the far north. The girl called the Ice and Snow Girl did not say a word. She followed Wu Feng silently with a green scorpion at her feet. Ling Yu looked at the girl behind him in surprise. Was this girl a soul beast? But from the outside, except for the fact that she was too pretty, she was no different from other ordinary human girls. Sure enough, there were many places and things on this continent that he had not seen. He did not know whether this soul beast was still there in the era he lived in. Wu Feng did not seem to care about the two creatures behind him at all. He carried out his daily life and spent more than 8 hours every day practicing swordsmanship. But it was precisely because of this reason that Ling Yu's swordsmanship practice became more profound and handy during this period. As time passed, there would be some huge noises from time to time in the cracks in the sky, and there would be occasional heart-wrenching roars. Every time he saw this scene, for some reason, Ling Yu could always feel Wu Feng's anger. It seemed that he was angry about the war going on, and angry about how many natural disasters this war would cause to creatures like them, and how many lives would die for no reason during this period. A year later, when Wu Feng had reached the deepest part of the far north, the low temperature here even made Wu Feng's body shiver. Even if he used soul power to wrap his body, he still couldn't resist the invasion of this low temperature. However, Wu Feng still practiced swordsmanship over and over again in such a cruel environment. He wanted to understand the true meaning of swordsmanship and why he should swing the long sword in his hand. Hey, just when Wu Feng stopped practicing sword, the girl who had been following him for a year finally spoke again. "Why do you keep practicing the same sword technique? Is this the only sword technique you can use?" Wu Feng glanced at her indifferently and said, "I have created a lot of sword techniques, but all of these sword techniques are flashy and impractical. They don't have much effect in real battles. Then why don't you create a sword technique that you think is really useful?" After hearing this, Wu Feng glanced at the sky full of cracks above his head and said indifferently, "Useful sword techniques? What's the use of having powerful sword techniques if you can't become a god?" The girl looked at him puzzled and asked, "I feel that your cultivation is very strong. There is no soul beast in the far north that can compete with you. You can achieve such a cultivation level at this age. Wouldn't the gods in the god realm choose you as their heir?" Wu Feng pointed at the countless cracks in the sky and sneered, "Do you think the current god realm will still care about us mortals in the lower world? I never expected to inherit their throne. But they have cut off the last hope of becoming a god on this plane. Even if you collect more faith in this world, the current god realm will not accept it." The girl glanced at her, put her finger to her mouth and said, "I am a life shaped by nature, and I am the snow elf who is closest to ice and snow. I feel that no matter how powerful the gods are, they are not as powerful as the mother of heaven and earth who shaped me." Wu Feng turned to look at the girl, his eyes moved slightly and said, "Do you want to learn sword?" After hearing this, the girl nodded excitedly. "Of course, I feel that the sword you practice is very suitable for me, at this point," she said with a somewhat depressed mood. "Originally, Lord Ice God would still look after us here, but since the God Realm War began, the environment here has become very harsh. Many years ago, although the temperature here was very low, it was enough for most soul beasts to survive. However, now, as a child of Mother Heaven and Earth, I cannot protect her people. I can only watch as many soul beasts are either frozen to death by the low temperature here, or killed by the aftermath of the battle in the God Realm." Chapter 115 Wu Feng's Memory, Part 2. Wu Feng nodded and said nothing more. From that day on, there was a little girl holding a white long sword beside Wu Feng. Of course, there was also a small green scorpion following behind them. "Master, I am a soul beast, don't you mind?" The girl held the long sword and imitated the other man's sword swinging, repeating the sword techniques over and over again with the man. "In my eyes, as long as they are not soul beasts that often come out of the forest to eat people, they are no different from humans." "What is the difference between your thoughts and your wisdom and humans?" Wu Feng said softly with a blank expression. "Not only is there no difference, but you are purer than most people outside. Maybe only creatures like you can practice sword techniques to the peak." The girl nodded as if she understood, and followed the man to wave the long sword again and practice sword techniques. At night, Wu Feng sat on the ground and looked at the night sky above his head, which no longer showed stars. The girl sat not far from the man, looking at the confusion in his eyes, thought for a while and said again, "Master, your sword is a magic weapon, right?" Wu Feng did not speak, but just nodded. "Then why don't you use this sword as a carrier and choose to become a god?" Wu Feng turned his head suddenly, looking at the girl with a gleam in his eyes. The other's words seemed to open a window for him. The girl was also frightened by the other's appearance. She said timidly, "The ice god said that every artifact contains the fairy spirit of the god realm. This is a good thing that only gods can absorb. For mortals in the lower world who want to become gods, in addition to the power of faith, the most important thing is the fairy spirit. Only by absorbing the fairy spirit and reaching the bottleneck of the lower world can mortals form a god position. Many gods in the god realm place their thrones on artifacts." Wu Feng suddenly realized that the artifact also has this function. He relied on his own efforts to get to where he is now step by step. Knowledge limited his thinking, so although he knew the origin of this sword, he didn't know the meaning of this sword at all. The girl's words completely opened his mind. He finally understood the real intention of this sword coming to his side. This was the plane consciousness wanting him to become a god on disguise with a sword to protect the creatures of this continent. At this moment, Wu Feng's eyes were shining, and the fog that had been shrouding his heart was finally cleared. He held the long sword and walked into the snow. His eyes were extremely excited, and he didn't hear the girls shouting behind him at all, or even if he heard it at this moment, he wouldn't care. In the snow, the girl watched the man holding the long sword and slashing at the front again and again, repeating this action. But for some reason, with the girl's strong perception of the space in the far north, she could clearly feel that every time Wu Feng's sword slashed, it would be more sharp and ethereal. It seemed that something kept appearing on the long sword in his hand. The purple long sword was held tightly, and he seemed to be slashing tirelessly in the snow, from night to dawn, and from dawn to night. Until 7 days later, his eye circles were sunken and his legs trembled slightly, but the arm holding the long sword was as steady as a rock, without a trace of trembling. Ling Yu's consciousness was also fascinated when the other party was extremely excited and fell into enlightenment. He followed the opponent's posture and chopped continuously. The intense mental consumption made his brain dizzy and swollen. Since his mental power surged to the current level, it was the first time that he felt such pain in his brain. You must know that at this time, Wu Feng has reached the level of title Douluo, and it is even very likely that he has reached the level of ultimate Douluo. His mental power is much higher than Ling Yu. The opponent can hold on for 7 days, but Ling Yu is almost to the limit. But he still gritted his teeth tightly, forcing himself to follow the opponent seriously and continue to swing the long sword in this situation. Finally, just when Ling Yu felt his whole body torn apart and his brain seemed to explode, a violent sound came from the front. Ling Yu felt a long sword in his hand. At this moment, the spirit, will, body, soul power, and the world all combined in one move. It seemed like a moment, and it seemed like eternity. Wu Fang's eyes flashed, the veins on his arms were exposed, and a deep purple light shone on the long sword. As Wu Fang chopped forward again, the next moment, the wind stopped, and the heavy snow in the sky seemed to be paused. An invisible wave emanated from the long sword and spread forward. Boom! Wu Fang stopped moving, his eyes tired with strong excitement. The girl behind him hugged the boulder tightly to prevent her body from being knocked to the ground by the huge movement. She opened her eyes, opened her mouth, and looked at the scene in front of her in disbelief. The ground cracked, and a huge canyon at least 50 meters wide and at least 5 kilometers long appeared in front of her. All the snow-capped mountains within this distance seemed to be cut by a giant sword, with smooth cuts and snow-capped mountains collapsing. Master, what is this? The little girl was so shocked that she looked at the man in front of her who was shaking as if he would fall to the ground at any moment. She asked in disbelief, Master, I have been practicing swordsmanship for 100 years, and today I know that I am myself. Wu Fang opened his arms and let out a long roar to the sky. This sword is called the Heaven Sword. I will use the sword in my hand to open the sky for this continent. After saying that, he fell to the ground and fell into deep sleep. When Ling Yu opened his eyes again, Natter was lying beside him, looking at him worriedly. Flanders, Zhao Wuji and Ma Hongjin were also standing by and looking at him worriedly. Brother, how did you faint on the mountain? Natter said worriedly. Fortunately, the dean went out for something in the afternoon. When he came back, I found you fainted on the mountain. I was almost scared to death. Ling Yu smiled embarrassedly. At this time, his head was still a little painful. Wu Fang's last memory was the continuous 7 days of long sword slashing, which really consumed his spirit a little. It's nothing, I was just tired from practicing swordplay and fell asleep accidentally. Flanders looked at him strangely. Would his face be so ferocious when he fell asleep? But at this time, he didn't ask much. After all, who doesn't have some secrets? Okay, since Ling Yu is fine, you guys should go back to meditate and practice. Mubai and Hongjun, don't let me catch you two doing bad things outside tonight. Otherwise you know the consequences. After saying that, Flanders looked at Ling Yu lying on the bed again, turned around and walked out. Then Brother Yu, we'll go back first. Have a good rest. Ling Yu nodded to Ma Hongjin and watched them leave. Only Ning Rongrong was still standing there, looking at him with worried eyes. Why don't you leave? Ling Yu looked at the little girl in confusion. What? Is there something wrong? Ning Rongrong pointed her finger at him, with a look of disbelief on her face. This girl is worried about you here, and you actually go to hell, big head. After saying that, the girl broke through the door and left, leaving only a few fragrances belonging to her. Natter looked at Ning Rongrong's back with a deep look in her eyes, then turned to Ling Yu and said, Brother, then you have a good rest. I'll go back first. Ling Yu nodded and rubbed her hair. When he was the only one left in the room, Ling Yu picked up the long sword on the ground and placed it on his legs. Wu Fang, are you there? What for? A tired voice sounded in his mind. Don't you know that it is very rude to disturb the sleep of an elderly person? If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 116 My Body is Like a Sword. Ling Yu's lips twitched a few times. Is this really the expressionless and fierce Wu Fang in his memory? Are you kidding me again? How is it? Was I once romantic and handsome? Once the kingly aura on my body appeared, even 100,000-year soul beast would be willing to be my little brother, the sword spirit said meanly. I was very strong before. Ling Yu rolled his eyes helplessly. Sorry, he couldn't combine this person with the former Wu Fang. There was really a big difference in personality. Hey, kid, I'm asking you. The sword spirit saw that the other party ignored him and said angrily, how much of my swordsmanship have you learned? Ling Yu looked thoughtful. Although he personally experienced Wu Fang's 1.5 years of sword training, to be honest, if he said that he had learned all the swordsmanship, it would definitely be impossible. In the 1.5 years he personally experienced, he could only learn about 70% of the heavenly sword. He did learn a lot of other swordsmanship, but he always felt that they were of little use. There was only one move that made him shine. It's okay. I have learned about 70% of the heavenly sword. But because my current strength is still relatively low, only at the soul sect level, so I estimate that I will be exhausted after using this move once, the sword spirit said in surprise. Boy, you are bragging. The heavenly sword is the pinnacle move I created after practicing swords for 100 years. You have learned 70% of it after just experiencing my creation for a few days. Ling Yu rolled his eyes. Can I tell you that my comprehension has greatly improved since I was baptized by the Hongmeng Purple Key? 70% is still a conservative estimate. After all, he only performed it once in a daze at that time, but the thoughts and feelings of the 7 days of creation were immersive. Don't worry about it. I said 70% is definitely 70%, Ling Yu said directly, but if you want to exert such a great power, it is definitely impossible. My current soul power level is still very low. The sword spirit looked at him with a trace of relief. Sure enough, this kid. I didn't choose the wrong person. He didn't show his physical appearance in front of the other party, because his body was really a bit unsightly now. The body, whose appearance was originally unclear, was actually somewhat transparent at this time. From a distance, one could vaguely see the other person from behind. That's fine, kid. Come on. Time is running out. Ling Yu listened to his nagging and replied directly, you have said this many times. Have you ever seen me stop working hard? At this point, Ling Yu couldn't help but ask, do you know when the plane you mentioned will invade? Is there an exact time? How can I know the exact time? I can't predict the future, the sword spirit complained. I can only rely on my intuition about them to infer. I estimate that there should be at least 5 years. There should be at least 5 years of preparation here. Ling Yu nodded, believing his words. Sitting cross-legged on the bed, he began to recover his mental consumption. The next day, Ling Yu stood on the hillside, holding the Wu Fang sword in his hand, and his mind kept echoing every time Wu Fang practiced sword during that year and a half. The heavy sword was like a feather in his hand, and like a piece of steel, sometimes soft, sometimes hard. His speed began to increase gradually. He held the long sword in one hand and chopped and swung it in front of him. Each swing seemed chaotic, but if you looked carefully, you would find that each of his swords took care of every corner in front of him. His speed was still increasing. Soon, the air around him began to rotate with his body. The fallen leaves and grass on the ground flew with a long sword in his hand, circling on the blade, sharp but soft. When practicing sword, remember to bring your own feelings into it, don't always imitate rigidly. The voice of the sword spirit sounded in his mind in time. Ling Yu's eyes lit up. He no longer stuck to the opponent's moves in his memory, and began to integrate them according to his own sword heart and his own understanding. The originally soft sword began to become more casual, and the swung long sword became more sharp. Seeing this scene, the sword spirit couldn't help but nod his head. The child is teachable. This kid's comprehension is really strong. Just a little guidance, he can immediately make corresponding improvements and add his own understanding. The most important thing is that the improvement is very good. Ling Yu's eyes were sharp, and he quickly swung the sword without a front edge. Suddenly, he closed his eyes, held the long sword with both hands and pulled back, and held the sword horizontally in front of his eyes. My body is like a sword. Indestructible, the sword spirit suddenly widened his eyes. This kid actually learned this move? This is his signature move. It is a way to combine the indestructible and sharp nature of the sword with his own body. After knowing the sword very well, this move is considered a self-created soul skill, which can make the sword holder resonate with the sword without a front edge, greatly improving the body's defense and the sharpness of the sword. After learning this move, you can basically release the sword energy. It took me nearly 10 years to create and learn it. This kid. As expected, Ling Yu suddenly opened his eyes, and the sharpness in his eyes became stronger, extremely oppressive. The sword without a front edge in his hand was trembling slightly, and a light purple light appeared on his body and the blade at the same time. Then, he held the long sword tightly and slashed directly in front of him. Swish! A 2-meter-long purple sword light slashed forward from the sword. The sword energy flew at an extremely fast speed, just like a phantom. Wherever the sword energy passed, the energy of the surrounding heaven and earth continued to boil and flow into it. The sword energy continued to grow, visible to the naked eye. Finally, Ling Yu pressed down with one hand, and the sword energy, which was nearly 4 meters long, suddenly slashed down. Boom! A loud noise came from the hillside, startling Shrek not far away. Two figures ran here in an instant. Ling Yu walked in to watch. A crack of 15 meters deep and 4 meters long had appeared on the ground. It's almost enough to injure a soul saint in the form of a martial soul. Humph, the sword spirit couldn't help but said sourly, you are simply insulting this move. According to your current physical strength, plus the blessing of the edgeless sword and the blessing of your own soul skills, it should at least be able to injure a soul Douluo. You need to practice more. Ling Yu ignored his mouth cannon. He looked at Zhao Wuji and Flanders who were running here and smiled. Deans, don't get excited. I was just exercising and couldn't help but use a little more force. Zhao Wuji glared at him. Can't you exercise more quietly? I thought someone came to the door. After Flanders' martial soul possessed him, he flew in the air and looked at a deep crack on the ground. His pupils suddenly shrank and he looked at Ling Yu as if he was looking at a treasure. This kid. He has become stronger again. Chapter 117, Dividing the Herbs, After finishing the conversation with the two, Ling Yu returned to the hillside again and began his daily training in the morning sun. In the evening, Gu Yuna and the others had to go to the Soto Great Fighting Soul Arena for a competition. Except for Oscar and Ningran Grong, they had to fight a duel every day. This was also Shrek's teaching plan. Ling Yu went to Zhao Wuji. The Great Fighting Soul Arena was too simple for him. If he wanted to show some strength, Zhao Wuji would have to be almost there now. On the field of Shrek Academy, several teachers, including Flanders and Li Yusong, were watching from the sidelines. Zhao Wuji and Ling Yu stood opposite each other in the center of the field. Ling Yu, boy, get ready and fight. Let me see how much you have improved during this period. Zhao Wuji grinned. Ling Yu raised his eyebrows, nodded and said, Teacher Zhao, be careful. After that, he moved his feet and rushed to Zhao Wuji like a phantom, raising dust and wind behind him. This scene made the teachers on the sidelines stare at him. Zhao Wuji was also shocked. How did you become so much stronger? During the last battle, although Ling Yu was very fast, it was far from being caught by Zhao Wuji. But now, Zhao Wuji could only vaguely sense his figure. Just when Zhao Wuji was still sensing where he would attack from, his face suddenly changed, and the first soul ring on his body suddenly lit up. First soul skill, Aquila body, a golden light completely enveloped his body, but Ling Yu didn't care at all. His figure flashed quickly and appeared behind him. He clenched his right fist at his waist and then slammed Zhao Wuji's back. Boom! With a muffled sound, the golden light on the opponent's body only lasted for a second before Ling Yu's powerful punch broke it, and Zhao Wuji's burly body was instantly knocked to the ground. Cough cough, Zhao Wuji felt that the young man behind him was still going to attack, and at the same time as he coughed, the third soul ring on his body lit up. Third soul skill, gravity enhancement. The moment the words fell, Ling Yu's punching figure suddenly stagnated, his legs bent a little, and his 2 feet were deeply sunk into the ground. Teacher Zhao is really merciless. This is close to 10 times the gravity. I don't need to use all my strength to deal with a monster like you. I'm afraid I'm asking for a beating. Zhao Wuji spitted and stood up quickly. His second soul ring flashed, and his palms instantly turned into a pile of white bear paws and slapped Ling Yu. Ling Yu did not dodge, or rather, under this gravity, coupled with Zhao Wuji's quick attack, he had no time to dodge unless he used soul skills. He stepped forward with one foot, his fist sank suddenly, his eyes were sharp, looking at the 2 huge palms above his head, and his fists resisted like lightning. This kid, Flanders saw that Ling Yu did not use his soul skills, but chose to resist Zhao Wuji's second soul skill. A look of surprise appeared on his face. Although your physical fitness is very strong, this is a full-strength attack from a soul saint. Unless your physical fitness reaches that of a titled Douluo, even a soul Douluo cannot be unscathed. Are you trying to kill yourself? The other teachers on the side also looked at Ling Yu's choice in disbelief, and they all felt that Ling Yu was a little arrogant. Zhao Wuji looked at Ling Yu's actions, his eyes shrank, but it was impossible to stop at this time. So he had to grit his teeth and glared at him fiercely. How could Ling Yu not know that even if he could withstand Zhao Wuji's move with his body alone, he would definitely suffer some minor injuries? But he knew how terrible his body's recovery ability was, and this minor injury would be completely recovered in a few minutes. Boom! The collision sounded again, and Zhao Wuji's body quickly stepped back 2 steps. Feeling the pain on his palm, he looked at Ling Yu in shock. This kid's physical fitness can be completely comparable to that of a soul Douluo. This Ling Yu flew backwards for several meters, and his upper body quickly bent forward, and his hands clasped the ground to stop his body from flying backwards. He wiped a few drops of blood from the corner of his mouth, and felt the injuries in his body recovering quickly, and a smile appeared on his lips. Okay, Teacher Zhao, let's stop here for this competition. Otherwise, if we continue to fight, you will have to activate your martial soul again. Ling Yu gently clasped his fists towards Zhao Wuji, and said hello to Flanders and several teachers, and walked towards his room. Only a few middle-aged and elderly bachelors in the venue were left in the wind. At night, after Gu Yuna and others came back, Ling Yu walked out of the door and called them to the center of the venue. Brother Yu, what do you want to talk to us about? Mo Hongjin said a little tiredly. Today's battle is so tiring. I called you here because I have something to tell you. I went out for a while some time ago and brought back some good things. Good things. Hearing Ling Yu's words, Mo Hongjin was no longer tired, and looked at him with a pair of cunning little eyes. Dai Mubei and Oscar also looked at him with shining eyes. You know, Ling Yu was able to invest hundreds of thousands of gold soul coins to help them improve their meals when he just came to the school. Although they didn't chat with Ling Yu very often, they were very friendly to him in their hearts. Ning Rongrong also looked at him with some brilliance when she heard this, and stood quietly aside waiting to see what he took out. Ling Yu stretched out his hand and wiped the ring, and 4 jade boxes appeared in front of them. First of all, Fatty, his evil fire has always been a problem. If it is not resolved as soon as possible, Fatty, you will most likely become an evil soul master. You must know that evil soul masters commit so many murders on the continent because they cannot control their own desires. I hope you can learn from this. He opened a box, and a fiery red grass appeared in front of everyone. If you look carefully, you can see scale-like patterns on the stems and leaves of the grass. This is fire scale grass, a very precious medicinal herb. It can effectively help you control your evil fire and prevent you from being devoured by the evil fire when you practice in the future. You can control it freely. Just eat the leaves of this grass. After eating, sit cross-legged and meditate. I estimate that it should be able to increase your soul power by 2 to 3 levels. Mo Hongjin took the box with excitement and looked up at Ling Yu with a serious look. Brother Yu, don't worry, you are my brother in the future. If you tell me to go east, I will never go west. Ling Yu patted his shoulder and chuckled. I just hope that even if you can control the evil fire in the future, you will go to places like that less often. You must control your desires, otherwise one day, you will suffer the consequences of indulgence. Mo Hongjin nodded solemnly, picked up the fire scale grass and walked aside. What about me? Ning Rongrong couldn't wait to walk to Ling Yu's side, holding his arm, and said coquettishly, where's mine? Ling Yu opened a box again, and inside was a white glowing grass, which looked very strange. This is Peiyuan grass, which can strengthen the foundation and nourish the essence. This grass can make your foundation more solid and make your future cultivation speed faster. I heard that you are at the 9th level of innate soul power. Eating this grass should make your cultivation speed almost the same as that of soul masters who have filled up their soul power first. Of course, it should also increase your soul power by 2 to 3 levels. Ning Rongrong excitedly took the grass, looking at Ling Yu with a hazy look in her eyes. She looked firm, tiptoed and kissed Ling Yu's cheek, but the next moment, Ling Yu turned around and bypassed her, leaving only a muffled smack sound in the air. Ning Rongrong didn't open her eyes. She took the grass and turned around and ran directly towards her residence, shouting as she ran, Ling Yu, you big blockhead, big fool, just wait. Everyone looked at Ling Yu, then at Nair, and then at Ning Rongrong, with a strange look in their eyes. Nair watched this scene with a smile, but Ling Yu could clearly feel that the place where she was looking at was a little cold. Thank you to the Bookworm Way for the 4 monthly tickets and 6,500 starting coins reward. Thank you to Yikyu Xinjian for the 500 starting coins reward. Thank you to Bing Chuan for the 1 monthly ticket. Thank you to Zaya Aho for the 2 monthly tickets. Thank you to Yidai Fengson for the 1 monthly ticket. Thank you to Yang Yu Fangking for the 100 starting coins reward. Thank you to Sefengai for the 100 starting coins reward. Thank you to Yikyu Xinjian for the 600 starting coins reward. Thank you to A6 Shura for the 100 starting coins reward. Thanks to Bookfriend 20220313222006505 for sending 1 monthly ticket. Thanks to Bookfriend 20220127191247531 for sending 2 monthly tickets. Thanks to book friend 140,605,180,447,978 for sending 1 monthly ticket. Thanks for your support. Chapter 118, Dividing the Herbs, Part 2. Oscar rubbed his hands, walked to Ling Yu's side, and said expectantly, "Brother Yu, what about me?" Ling Yu said helplessly, "Zioao, you don't have to call me that, just call me Ling Yu, you are older than me." As he said that, he opened another box and handed it to Oscar. In the box was a purple flower, which looked a bit like the purple jade flower that accompanied Nahor's first soul ring, the purple jade bamboo, but the two were completely incomparable. This is the purple vein flower, a very precious herb. It can expand the meridians of a soul master and increase the speed of a soul master's cultivation. It is most effective for a food-type soul master like you. It can make your future cultivation speed not weaker than that of a strong attack-type soul master like Daim Yu Bei. He looked at Oscar and said, "Originally, I prepared pian grass for you, but I think this is more suitable for you, because you are a soul master with full innate soul power, so in comparison, I still think this is more suitable for you. Just eat the petals of this flower, you don't need to eat the rest." Oscar looked at the flower in his hand excitedly, and smiled at Ling Yu. "Ling Yu, I won't say much else. In the future, if you want to eat the grilled sausages I made, no matter when, it will be free." Ling Yu smiled and nodded at him. He knew that the other party could say this, which was equivalent to completely treating Ling Yu as a good brother in his heart. Seeing Oscar take the flower to the side and start eating it, Ling Yu looked at Daim Yu Bei on the side again. The other party was also looking at him excitedly at this time. Ling Yu was so generous and the things he gave were so effective. You have to know that he is the Prince of Douluo and he has never seen such a good thing in his life. "Yu Bei, I know that your martial soul is the white tiger and the attribute is the light attribute, so what I want to give you is the sunflower. This flower has only one function, which is to enhance the light attribute of your martial soul. Of course, I think it can also increase your soul power by 2/3 levels. Just eat all of this flower, there is no other way to take it." Daim Yu Bei took the flower that looked like a sunflower from Ling Yu's hand with excitement. He looked at Ling Yu and said seriously, "I don't need to thank you for your kindness, Ling Yu, from today on, you are my best brother, Daim Yu Bei." Ling Yu smiled and nodded at him, watching him walk aside and start practicing. In fact, Ling Yu did not have any psychological burden to give it to Daim Yu Bei. First of all, although the medicinal herbs are precious, they are not fairy herbs. They will be of some benefit to them in the future, but they cannot be compared with the powerful effects of fairy herbs. In addition, although Daim Yu Bei has some problems with his character, he is still very generous. He can be a good helper when the catastrophe comes in the future. Even if there is any problem, with his ability, he can suppress it. Now he just needs to wait for half a year to see if Tang-san will come here. If he doesn't come, then I'm sorry, these students of Shrek Academy will all be his future team. Even if he comes, he has spent so much time with them in advance, plus today's gift, and the yin-yang eyes of ice and fire have nothing to do with Tang-san. In this case, no matter what he does, he can't change his image in the hearts of several people. And Tang Hao. He has long wanted to talk to this Haoshin Douluo. He has a lot of questions to ask. He needs answers from the other party about Kyank Sunji and Hao Xianzong. Especially the latter. The matter of Hao Xianzong's closure of the mountain is too weird. Even Bibi Dong, the Pope of the Spirit Hall, is not very clear. If you want to get the answer, you can only start from Tang Hao. In addition, he also wanted to test the other party's attitude towards the Spirit Hall. The development of the plot was too far off, and he had to test it again. Moreover, since the Sharingan was upgraded to the main Gekyo, coupled with the edgeless sword and the second spirit, he was confident that he could escape from the other party's hands. Just as Ling Yu was still thinking about the future development, Gu Yuna walked to Ling Yu's side. "Brother, what do you think of Ning Rongrong?" Nahor smiled gently and softly. "I think she's pretty good. What do you think?" Ling Yu's mouth twitched a few times, and he looked at the girl beside him speechlessly. "Nahor, you don't have to worry. I think Ning Rongrong is lucky to have you guys as my confidants. With the future in mind, I don't have the idea of falling in love with anyone else." Nahor held Ling Yu's hand and chuckled. "Brother, I don't mean that. Rongrong and I have lived together for half a year. I know her very well and I understand her feelings for you." The girl looked at Ling Yu's face tenderly, and the corners of her mouth curved up. "If you really think Rongrong is good, I don't object. Of course, You'd better tell your two sisters about this. Ling Yu rubbed the girl's hair and said nothing more. As for Ning Rongrong's feelings for him, he could only say that it was just love, just an ignorant girl's admiration for a boy. As for the future, let the world decide. A night passed, and when Ling Yu finished his practice the next morning and came to the venue, Daimyo Bei and the other two had already finished refining. The three looked at Ling Yu more excitedly than the other. Brother Yu, I have reached level 27. I was only level 24 before. I didn't expect that I would be promoted 3 levels this time. Moreover, my evil fire can be controlled at will. When I practice in the future, I don't have to worry about the evil fire attacking my heart. Mo Hongjin walked to Ling Yu with excitement. Just as he was about to give Ling Yu a hug, he dodged. Fatty, you should take a look at your body first. Hearing Ling Yu's words, Mo Hongjin hurriedly lowered his head to look at his body. He had become thinner, and his body was covered with black dirt. An unpleasant odor emanated from his body, which almost made him vomit stomach acid. He rushed to his residence and left Ling Yu with an extremely grateful look. Ling Yu glanced at Ma Hongjin, shook his head, walked to Oscar and Daimyo Bei, and asked softly, "How is it? What level are you to now?" Daimyo Bei said with gratitude, "Level 37. Up 2 levels. And my martial soul," as he said that, he possessed his martial soul. Compared with the mighty and domineering white tiger before, the opponent's martial soul at this time has become more sacred. There is a sense of deja vu of a 6-winged angel. Ling Yu nodded. Maybe, Daimyo Bei may be a weapon against evil soul masters in the future. You know, evil soul masters are almost all restrained by the light attribute. Although Daimyo Bei's light attribute is far inferior to that of the 6-winged angel, it is already top-notch. What about you, Zioao? Oscar said with a smile. I'm already level 29 now. I've increased my soul power by 3.5 levels. I feel like I'll be able to hunt for the 3rd soul ring soon. After saying that, he waved his arms and said excitedly, also, my cultivation speed has increased a lot. At least my level increase speed won't be slower than that of Boss Dai in the future. Ling Yu nodded. This result was exactly as expected. The herbs I gave you are all based on strengthening your foundation. They won't deplete your potential, but will nourish your foundation. So although you've made a big improvement this time, it's better to stabilize your realm. Chapter 119 Dark Demon Evil God Tiger, I. Both of them nodded, looking at Ling Yu with gratitude and excitement. Ling Yu, I don't need to thank you for your kindness. I, Daimyo Bei, will remember this in my heart. If you have any problems in the future, let me know and I will definitely help you with all my strength. Daimyo Bei patted his chest and said to Ling Yu. Oscar on the side also nodded repeatedly. Ling Yu actually gave such a benefit as soon as he said it. This must be very touching. Ling Yu waved his hand and said to Oscar, Zioao, you stabilize it for a few days. Natter has just broken through to level 39 recently. I estimate that in another month, you can go to get the spirit ring together. Oscar naturally nodded repeatedly. Today can be said to be the happiest day of his life. Ling Yu chatted with the two for a few more words and took Natter back to his room. Since Natter's memory awakened last time, her spirit power has been in a state of soaring, basically increasing by 1 level every 2 months. During this period of time, her strength has reached level 39. Ling Yu estimated that in more than a month, her strength will reach level 40 or 40. In fact, Ling Yu also asked her whether he would form his own soul rings or absorb soul rings from soul beasts in the future. The other party explained that although she was the Silver Dragon King, her strength was still sealed and it would take some time to recover. Therefore, during this period, she could absorb soul rings from soul beasts to break the restrictions and restore her strength. In fact, Ling Yu was very confused by this explanation. Because after the 100,000-year soul beasts transformed into human form, their soul rings were all self-produced, but Gu Yuna needed to absorb soul rings from soul beasts to break the restrictions on her strength. Maybe this is the difference between a divine beast and a soul beast. What? You said your level has reached 27. Flanders looked at Ma Hongjin in front of him and asked seriously, what's going on? Tell me clearly, you didn't take any medicine that would damage your potential, did you? The little fat man shook his head immediately and said, it was Brother Yu. Did it Brother Yu go out for a while? He gave each of us a herb, saying that it would improve our strength, and not only would it not damage our potential, but it would also help us strengthen our foundation. Flanders looked a little surprised and suddenly realized, it turned out to be that guy. That makes sense. He glanced at Ma Hongjin, stretched out his hand and pressed it on his shoulder. and his soul power began to feel the abnormality of his body. Sure enough, after the examination, his body not only had no bad symptoms, but became stronger. Can you control your evil fire? Mohongjin nodded hurriedly. Flanders looked thoughtful. In that case, you should stay in the academy and practice in the future. If I find out that you go to a brothel again, I will break your legs. Do you hear me? Mohongjin's face immediately became depressed, but remembering what Ling Yu said, he nodded vigorously to Flanders. Okay, go back. I still have to go see Mu Bai and Xiao Ao. If they are similar to you, I estimate that it won't be long before they can hunt for the third soul ring. Mohongjin hurried out of the office, making Flanders behind him smile. A month later, outside the starred-out Great Forest, Zhao Wuji led the Shrek people walking in the town. It's still early now. Let's go into the starred-out Great Forest. Zhao Wuji looked at Ling Yu and smiled. Xiao Yu, you arranged the formation. Ling Yu nodded and looked at the people behind him. Ningrongrong looked at the other person's eyes and turned her pretty face to the side, but she didn't attract too much attention from Ling Yu. Ningrongrong and Oscar are in the middle, Daimyo Bei is in the front, and Natter is on the flank. Be careful of the soul beasts here. As he said that, he gave Natter a look and continued, as for me, I will be at the end to prevent the soul beasts from attacking from the back. Zhao Wuji nodded and said, that's right, little guys, let's go. Several people nodded, and according to Ling Yu's arrangement, they began to quickly stand in formation and walk towards the forest in front. As several people went deeper, the figures of soul beasts gradually appeared in front of everyone. This time, we will help Oscar hunt the third soul ring on the periphery, and then help Gu Yuna hunt the fourth soul ring. At this point, Zhao Wuji looked at Ling Yu and Gu Yuna strangely. No wonder these two people became siblings. With such abnormal talents, how could they not be a family? Ling Yu's 3 Magatama Sharingan appeared, and all traces of soul beasts within a radius of 1,500 meters were clearly visible. This also greatly shortened the time for everyone to find soul beasts. Half a day later, when everyone came to a dense bush, Ling Yu suddenly shouted, Stop, Xiao Yu, did you find anything? Zhao Wuji looked at Ling Yu and asked, Did you find a soul beast suitable for Oscar? Ling Yu nodded and shook his head. Gu Yuna's face also became a little ugly. Ling Yu and she felt an extremely evil breath here. And judging from the breath, everyone was definitely not far away from the soul beast emitting this breath. Ling Yu felt that this breath was somewhat familiar. Although this breath was similar to that of an evil soul master, it was purer than that of an evil soul master, as if it was born to be extremely evil. He turned his head to look at Gu Yuna on the side, extending his doubts, hoping to get her answer. It's the dark demon evil god tiger, Gu Yuna said. This is a soul beast that will be killed by all the soul beasts of the starred-out Great Forest, who are over 100,000 years old if it is discovered. This soul beast is different from the soul beasts that rely on cultivation to break through the age limit. They rely on their own cultivation speed to be extremely slow. This soul beast almost relies on hunting soul beasts and devouring soul beasts to improve their cultivation. Ling Yu suddenly realized that it was this soul beast. He had seen information about this soul beast in the books of the Spirit Hall. Legend has it that this soul beast was originally a white tiger with light attributes, but because of the advent of the evil god's aura, this white tiger with light attributes turned into the extremely evil dark demon evil god tiger. Generally speaking, soul beasts can be human martial souls, but this dark demon evil god tiger is an exception. No one's martial soul has ever been it. It itself is not dark attribute, but the extremely evil attribute left by the evil god, which is simply not something that the human body can withstand. This soul beast is even stronger than the Titan giant ape and the dark gold terror claw bear at the same level. And according to the aura around, it is obvious that the strength of this soul beast has definitely reached the level of a title Douluo. Teacher Zhao, take them back quickly, I'll go check it out first. No, Zhao Wuji rejected Ling Yu's proposal without thinking. Even if Ling Yu was very powerful, he couldn't take such a risk with such a dangerous soul beast. Don't worry, Teacher Zhao, have you forgotten my first soul skill? And, as he said that, 4 soul rings, 2 purple and 2 black, rose from his body, which made Zhao Wuji and everyone else stunned. When did you reach the soul sect? Zhao Wuji looked at Ling Yu in disbelief. He remembered that more than half a year ago, he was only level 32. How could he reach this level in just half a year? Did I remember the time wrong? Okay, Teacher Zhao, take them back to the outermost part of the forest first. I'll go and take a look by myself. After saying that, Ling Yu gave Gu Yuna a look and ran directly in the direction where the aura came from. Chapter 120 Dark Demon Evil Tiger, Part 2. Ling Yu kept running forward. The closer he got, the more he could feel the terrifying aura of evil. The extreme evil made Ling Yu feel uncomfortable all over. He couldn't help but frown, although the aura was very terrifying. But he did not stop. Roar. Just as Ling Yu was about to get closer, two familiar roars came from the front, causing Ling Yu's figure to suddenly stagnate. Titan Giant Ape, Azure Bull Python? Ling Yu showed a trace of doubt on his face. Are these two kings of the forest joining forces to eliminate each other? Thinking of this, the golden phoenix wings behind him instantly pierced through his clothes, and the huge wings flapped, carrying Ling Yu and running forward quickly. As Ling Yu kept getting closer, the forest began to thunder and shake continuously, as if a shocking battle was taking place. His eyes became a little sharp, and he held the long sword behind him with one hand, and continued to speed up and fly forward. Less than a minute later, when Ling Yu appeared at the location where the battle took place, the three beasts stopped their movements at the same time, and three pairs of big eyes looked at him at the same time. It's you, too. The Titan Giant Ape and the Azure Bull Python looked at Ling Yu in surprise, and then the two beasts seemed to have thought of something at the same time, and their faces were overjoyed. Boy, hurry up and imprison him, otherwise if he escapes this time, I don't know how many soul beasts and soul masters will be in trouble, the Titan Giant Ape shouted at Ling Yu, and Ling Yu looked at him helplessly. Is it really okay for you to be so reckless? If you say that, won't the other party be prepared? The Azure Bull Python also glared at the other party angrily. His eyes made the gorilla realize something, and he lowered his head in dejection, with a somewhat aggrieved expression. Ling Yu looked at the strange soul beast on the side. It looked no different from an ordinary tiger, but this tiger was all black, its eyes emitted a terrifying red light, it had black wings on its back that represented depravity, and its tail was an evil gut hook similar to a scorpion's tail. It looked like an evil. Seeing Ling Yu appear, the black tiger's eyes became more fierce, and the red light in its pupils stared at Ling Yu closely. The majestic momentum pressed towards Ling Yu, and a threatening roar came out of its mouth. 3 Magatama Sharingan appeared in Ling Yu's eyes instantly, and 4 soul rings, 2 purple and 2 black, appeared on his body. In the eyes of the other party, who was surprised, and surprised. The first and third soul rings on Ling Yu's body lit up immediately, and then his whole body lit up with golden light, and a golden light in his eyes instantly shot towards the black tiger. The moment the soul rings on Ling Yu lit up, the other party realized that something was wrong. His wings trembled, and the next moment, the dark demon evil god tiger's body began to show fluctuations like space distortion. At the moment the golden light shot out from his pupils, the figure of the black tiger had appeared behind him. Boy, be careful. With a scream of the sky blue bull python, Ling Yu could clearly feel the bloody mouth biting towards him from behind. His face was calm, his eyes blinked and closed quickly, and the 3 Magatama instantly turned into a hexagram. Then a huge purple skeleton emerged from his body. The skeleton was very wide and completely wrapped Ling Yu's body. Clang. A sound like metal colliding came from behind Ling Yu. The black tiger and the 2 forest kings beside him looked at Ling Yu's pupils and the huge skeleton that completely enveloped him in disbelief. Just as the black tiger's eyes became fierce and a black lightning appeared on its wings, the skeleton that wrapped Ling Yu grew 2 huge skeletal palms and slapped the black tiger fiercely. Titan sky breaks. After the Titan Giant Ape roared, a yellowish-brown light column and 2 huge palms collided with a black lightning from the black tiger's wings at the same time. Boom! A huge explosion sounded in the forest, and Ling Yu's body was instantly blown away dozens of meters, and the huge purple skeleton around him was full of cracks. Is it really not working? Ling Yu looked at the unscathed black giant tiger in front of him with a sharp look in his eyes, and said indifferently, Susanoo in its initial form can't resist the attack of the tidal Douluo level. The golden phoenix wings behind him spread out again, quickly stopping his tendency to fly backwards. A gust of wind blew, and 2 huge beasts, the Azure Bull Python and the Titan Giant Ape, appeared beside him. Looking at Ling Yu's huge skeleton full of cracks but constantly recovering, a little curiosity flashed in the eyes of the Titan Giant Ape. Boy, what kind of soul skill is this? Why have I never seen it before? The Titan Giant Ape stood up and knocked a few times with its nearly 20-meter-tall body and the skeleton on Ling Yu that was almost half his height. Bang bang! The heavy knocking sound came from Susanoo, making the Titan Giant Ape's eyes shine a little. Boy, after the fight, don't leave. Stay here and play with me. Your defense is pretty good, Erming. Just as the Titan ape was about to continue talking, the Azure Bull Python on the side couldn't help but scold him. Okay, Ling Yu smiled at the Titan ape. I'm also worried that I can't find a suitable opponent to spar with recently. Let's spar when the time comes. The Titan ape was stunned when he heard Ling Yu's words, and then he said happily, ha ha ha, you human boy, you are really interesting. Okay. Let's spar when the time comes. The Azure Bull Python looked at the two people on the side helplessly. The battle hasn't officially started yet, but they are already discussing sparring. But he can understand that he has been in the starred out Great Forest. In addition to the 7 fierce beasts in the forest, there are also some extremely hidden 100,000-year-old soul beasts. Erming can be said to be invincible and has been lonely for a long time. He is a playful and active person, unlike him, who can stay in the lake and practice for a long time. I'll talk to you later. Let's get rid of this damn guy first. The Titan ape stared fiercely at the black tiger flying in the air in front of him, and said in his loud voice, this tiger has killed countless soul beasts in the forest. Now his cultivation has reached the level of more than 80,000 years. Tens of thousands of soul beasts have died in his mouth. We must get rid of him today. The Azure Bull Python and Ling Yu also looked at the dark demon evil god tiger in front of them with serious expressions. Both beasts and one person were waiting for the time to launch their full strength. Ling Yu tightly grasped the edgeless sword in his hand, and a strange light flashed in his eyes. Hey, gorilla, your name is Erming. Is this person called Daming? Hearing Ling Yu's question, Erming nodded honestly and waited for his next words. I have a way. As long as the two of you can restrain each other's movements for a few seconds, I can seriously injure this soul beast. Of course, this is my full strength attack. After using it, I will lose my strength instantly. If I can't kill him by then, I can only rely on you two to protect me. The Azure Bull Python looked at him deeply and asked uncertainly, are you sure? The Titan ape also tilted his head with a look of doubt. Don't worry, Ling Yu patted his chest and said, at this time, I won't joke with you about this kind of thing. Daming and Erming looked at each other, thought for a while, and nodded heavily to Ling Yu. Okay, 2. Chapter 121 Dark Demon Evil Tiger, Part 3. Seeing the two soul beasts agreed, Ling Yu, although he felt a little different, also focused. In a moment, when I say start, remember to imprison him. Remember, you must help me imprison him for 3 seconds. The Titan giant ape and the Azure Bull Python nodded at the same time, looking at the dark demon evil god tiger with extremely sharp eyes. Ling Yu took a deep breath, closed his eyes, and then opened them again. The next moment, the Susanoo beside him changed rapidly. In the shut eyes of the 3 giant beasts, the Susanoo, which was originally just a skeleton, was instantly covered with thick muscle tissue in just one breath. The black giant tiger obviously felt something was wrong. The red light in its eyes became brighter, and its mouth opened, and a dark energy ball appeared in its mouth. The terrifying energy continued to compress, and the next moment, a black terrifying beam of light rushed from the giant tiger's mouth towards the 2 beasts and one person. Do it! Following Ling Yu's shout, the Titan giant ape and the Azure Bull Python roared at the same time, and cyan and khaki light emanated from the 2 beasts at the same time. Gravity field and slow field. The 2 fields instantly enveloped the dark demon evil god tiger, causing the opponent's figure floating in the air to be pressed to the ground in an instant, and an angry tiger roar came out of his mouth. Earth shield. The Titan giant ape's fists emerged with rich khaki energy, and the heavy energy completely wrapped his arms. Then, the 2 huge arms slammed heavily on the ground. A wall of earth that could be compared to the walls of an ordinary big city rose from the ground, blocking the shock wave of the giant tiger. Erming, go all out. Following the order of the Azure Bull Python, a ball of cyan light emerged from the pair of horns on Daming's head. The Titan giant ape also used his fists to hit his chest several times, and a thick khaki light appeared on his huge palms. Ling Yu watched the 2 giant beasts gather their strength to attack. His eyes flashed, he took a deep breath, and stood in front of him holding the long sword with both hands. Fusion. The moment the voice fell, purple light balls emerged from his body and the long sword at the same time, and the next moment, the long sword in his hand suddenly disappeared. Buzz! With a tremor, the Susanoo on his body, which had reached the size of a Titan ape, appeared in his hand with a sword without a blade that was magnified dozens of times. Daming, Erming, and the dark demon evil god tiger not far away were all shocked by the huge movement of Ling Yu. The three giant beasts stared with wide eyes and looked at this scene with shock on their faces. "It's not over yet," Ling Yu shouted. Kagutsuchi. A terrifying heat emanated from Ling Yu's body, and the purple longsword in the hand of the huge giant that enveloped Ling Yu actually ignited black flames. Under the control of Ling Yu's right eye, the flames quickly covered the longsword completely. Dumbing and arming, "Make your move." Hearing Ling Yu's words, the titan giant ape and azure bull python glowed with light, and the long-accumulated ultimate moves immediately launched at the dark demon evil god tiger. Slow beam, Titan's grip. The black giant tiger's eyes shrank, and a look of fear flashed in his eyes. The two attacks were too fast, and he didn't even have time to use space transfer. Roar. With an angry tiger roar from his mouth, his tail suddenly lit up with a rich black and purple aura. Whoosh! With a sound of breaking through the air, his scorpion tail continued to extend and pierce the two beams of light rushing towards him. Puff! Like the sound of a balloon being punctured echoing in the forest, the slow beam launched by the azure bull python was punctured in an instant and dissipated. But just when the evil gut hook was successfully blocked by this beam of light, it was at this moment that the titan giant ape's ultimate move directly hit the black giant tiger. Roar! The black tiger couldn't help but let out a miserable roar. His black tiger body seemed to be held by a titan ape hand that was magnified several times. He couldn't move, and even his abilities were imprisoned. "Boy, are you okay?" "My ability can only imprison him for a maximum of 2 seconds, the titan ape shouted to Ling Yu behind him. "I've been waiting for a long time." Ling Yu let out a breath, and his red eyes stared at the imprisoned dark demon evil god tiger in front of him. Heavenly sword. At this moment, Ling Yu's eyes suddenly changed from the sharpness of the previous second to calmness. His body stood straight, his arms raised high, and he slashed fiercely in front of him. Susanoo followed his movements, holding the long sword wrapped in black flames with both hands, and golden flames emerged from the eyes of the purple body, slashing hard at the giant tiger. The speed of this move was very slow, and it could even be said to be clearly visible. But the moment this move was slashed, it made the dark demon evil god tiger keep roaring, and his eyes were extremely terrified, as if he had seen something extremely terrifying. "It's over," Ling Yu couldn't help but murmur. This move was created by Wu Feng when he practiced sword for 100 years. It is a move that fully combines spirit, will, body, sword heart, and soul power. He even added the blessing of Susanoo and Amaterasu on this basis. It can be said that it has been further improved. This move is unavoidable. When it is launched, it means that it will definitely hit. He dared to say that anyone below the title Douluo will die if he takes this move. Ordinary title Douluo will be seriously injured or even die if they take this move. Unless they can deal with Amaterasu, or cut off their arms to survive, only death awaits them. Under the gaze of the two soul beast kings, Susanoo held the long sword in his hand and slashed at the giant tiger. As the giant tiger's body trembled, a huge sound continued to echo in the forest. The rich sword energy cut down countless trees around. Ling Yu looked at the huge sword mark in front of him with excitement, which spread from his feet to several hundred meters away. Wherever the sword mark passed, everything was opened by the sword. Only the giant tiger in front of him blocked his head with the evil gut hook on his tail at the critical moment, so that his body was completely cut open from the neck to the abdomen. Blood and organs were scattered all over the ground. His body was also wrapped by countless black air currents at this time, and the wound on his abdomen was entangled by black flames and air currents. The black flames were constantly corroding and burning his flesh and organs, but the black air currents were constantly offsetting the damage of the black flames and trying to recover. However, the opponent was already seriously injured at this time. Even if he could recover again, it would be completely futile for the remaining two soul beast kings. This giant tiger was destined to die. The Mangekyou Sharingan in Ling Yu's eyes dissipated instantly, and the black pupils reappeared. Its body suddenly knelt on one knee on the ground. The move just now had almost consumed his soul power. Sure enough, it was very good to be able to launch such a big move once. Chapter 122 Evil God Pearl. The Titan Ape and Azure Bull Python opened their mouths wide, and their four huge lantern-like eyes looked at Ling Yu, who was kneeling on one knee in disbelief. "Little boy, your move is so strong." The Titan Ape scratched his forehead with his broad hands and said honestly, "If you really use this move during the competition, I might be seriously injured." The Azure Bull Python beside him also nodded. Although this move consumes a lot of energy, It must be admitted that its power is indeed ridiculously strong. Haha, Ling Yu laughed, when we were really competing, you wouldn't give me time to prepare. This move takes a long time. My current limit can only reach this level. If I want to be stronger, I can only wait until I have a higher level of cultivation in the future. Okay, kill the opponent quickly. So as not to leave any trouble, the Azure Bull Python glared at Erming, and the two beasts walked towards the black giant tiger lying on the ground with weak breathing. But just as the two beasts were about to approach, the dark demon evil god tiger suddenly opened his eyes. He did not look at Aming and Erming, but looked at Ling Yu, who was constantly breathing and recovering energy behind him with resentment. Not good. The Azure Bull Python immediately realized that something was wrong. He waved his huge tail and slapped the giant tiger, but was greeted by the other party's mocking eyes. A black light suddenly shot out from his eyes, and in the stunned eyes of the two beasts and the surprised eyes of Ling Yu, it completely wrapped his tiger body and Ling Yu's body. With a twist of space, the dark demon evil god tiger and Ling Yu disappeared at the same time, leaving the two beasts with regret. Ling Yu felt that his eyes went black, and when he opened his eyes again, he found that he had turned into his childhood appearance. Isn't this when I was 6 years old? Ling Yu felt the energy in his body and Danshan, and said in surprise, could it be that this tiger has the ability to travel through time? Just as he was still in a daze, a slightly childish tiger roar in front of him immediately brought him back to his senses. Ling Yu looked up and saw a black tiger about 1.5 meters in size. However, the tiger's tail did not have the evil gut hook at this time, but it had a bunch of fallen evil gut wings on its back. The opponent's aura was much weaker than before. Now he could only compete with ordinary 1,000-year soul beasts at most. Are we both returning to the larval stage at the same time? Ling Yu looked at himself and the dark demon evil god tiger and couldn't help guessing. It seems so. This tiger actually has the attribute of time. Just as he was still in a daze, a cold voice suddenly sounded in the space. Welcome to the arena of life and death. Only one side survives before it ends. The countdown begins. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Start. As the voice fell, the black tiger not far away spread its wings behind it, and a black lightning began to gather on its back. Looking at the mockery on the corner of the dark demon evil god tiger's mouth, Ling Yu couldn't help laughing out loud. Even if you have soul skills, you can't imagine it no matter how hard you try. When I was 6 years old, my strength reached 2,000 kilograms. He stomped his foot on the ground and ran towards the giant tiger quickly. Look at me smashing your head. Feeling Ling Yu's speed, the giant tiger was obviously very surprised. They were both in the larval stage? How could you cheat like this? He let out a tiger roar, and the lightning on his wings instantly shot towards Ling Yu. Although the speed of this black lightning was very fast, Ling Yu's body was comparable to that of a soul master at the age of 6, which was no joke. He directly supported the ground with one hand and leaped to the side. Although he dodged most of the lightning, his arm was still rubbed. In just a moment, his arm began to emit a thick black mist. The eroded arm was completely unable to move, and a cold, evil breath continued to cover its head. Roar. At this moment, a light golden light suddenly emerged from his chest, and a dragon roar suddenly came from his body, instantly shaking off the evil breath on his arm. Ling Yu's eyes became majestic, like the Emperor of Heaven above the 9 heavens. Kneel down. A voice containing endless majesty suddenly sounded from Ling Yu's mouth. This shout made him feel extremely surprised. Why was his body out of control? This majestic command, like the ancestor who spoke the law of heaven, made the dark demon evil god tiger crawl on the ground in an instant, trembling all over, and whimpering like begging for mercy. Ling Yu saw this good opportunity and directly used his feet to smash the tiger's head with both hands. When he opened his eyes again, his mind was still recalling the scene just now in the space. But at this moment, the breath of space suddenly came from his side again. As if a blessing came to his heart, his eyes were immediately possessed by the Sharingan, and the first soul ring lit up. Golden eyes and angry eyes, a golden light shot out from his eyes, instantly fixing the beads in front of the black hole that suddenly appeared behind him. Ling Yu walked forward quickly, stretched out his hand and grasped the bead. When it touched Ling Yu's body, the bead suddenly trembled violently for a few times, then calmed down and stopped moving. The body of the black giant tiger beside it immediately turned into a pile of smoke and disappeared. No soul ring. Ling Yu looked at this scene in surprise. This tiger died, but it didn't have a soul ring? But soon, he looked at the bead in his hand. The bead looked a little strange. It actually had 6 colors, and a strong evil aura emanated from the bead. "Hey, kid," the voice of the sword spirit suddenly sounded. "Where did you get such a good thing? Do you recognize it?" Ling Yu asked the sword spirit. "Do you know what this thing is? Do you know what it does?" The sword spirit said enviously. "This thing is called the evil god Pearl. Didn't you just see the tiger? That is the incarnation of the evil god in the mortal world. This bead can transform the person who absorbs it." Transformation. Hearing Ling Yu's doubts, the sword spirit continued, "This bead is a good thing. It not only contains the soul ring of this soul beast, but also a soul bone. More importantly, the person who absorbs this bead can obtain the 6 attributes of this bead." Ling Yu's eyes lit up after hearing this. What a good thing. As if seeing Ling Yu's expression, the sword spirit smiled and said, "Fortunately, you have the edgeless sword in your hand. You can use the ability of fusion and devouring to merge the edgeless sword with a martial soul. You want to absorb the bead. Then you can completely absorb the bead. This bead contains the evil god's divine thoughts and the tiger's resentment. Even if you are a titled Douluo, you would be courting death if you want to absorb this bead. However, with the edgeless sword, these 2 remaining thoughts are suppressed by it. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 123 Why I Don't Understand. Ling Yu put the bead into a small box with a somewhat excited look on his face, and put it into his soul guide ring. "It seems that one of my soul rings has been found." He stood up, patted his chest, and walked towards the Titan giant ape and the azure bull python. "Boy, thank you so much this time." Daming looked at Ling Yu's unharmed appearance, and said with a smile, "If it weren't for you, this time I and Erming could have caused serious injuries to the other party, but it would not be so easy to keep him." The Titan giant ape on the side also nodded with gratitude. "Boy, this is the 2nd time you have helped us, and we don't even know your name." "Ling Yu?" The young man grinned at the 2 giant beasts and said, "Remember this name. It will definitely become the strongest in the future." The azure bull python looked at him deeply, and thanked Erming and Ling Yu again, and walked towards the depths of the forest. "Ling Yu, remember to come find me when you have time. We still have a fight to start." The Titan ape turned around and shouted at him. Ling Yu nodded at him, and began to rush towards the direction of the academy. Half an hour later, when he came to the outskirts of the forest again, Zhao Wuji and the others were standing here anxiously waiting. Hearing the movement, Zhao Wuji's eyes lit up instantly. "Everyone, we can go in. The soul beast that just emitted a breath has left," Ling Yu said casually to everyone, "but we have to be quick this time. I just found several soul beast overlords fighting. Each of them was seriously injured, and they have returned to their own territory." Zhao Wuji nodded with a serious face, and the others also became nervous. But this time it was good that Ling Yu's Sharingan helped Oscar hunt a 1,300-year-old phoenix-tailed coxcomb snake in just one day. Just like the soul skills he obtained in his previous life, he could make multiple mushroom sausages that could make people fly. "Okay, now we just need Guyuna's soul ring." Zhao Wuji looked at Guyuna and asked, "Guyu, do you have a target soul beast?" Guyuna looked at the man on the site and said nothing. Ling Yu smiled at Zhao Wuji and said, "It's like this, Teacher Zhao. I have already chosen a soul beast for Nair. Because Nair's physical fitness is strong enough, I helped him choose a 10,000-year soul beast this time." 10,000-year soul beast. Everyone was shocked when they heard Ling Yu's words. "Hey, kid, don't joke with me. A 10,000-year soul ring is not that easy to absorb." Zhao Wuji wanted to say something else, but Ling Yu smiled and shrugged. "Everyone, can I harm my sister?" He patted his chest and assured Zhao Wuji, "Teacher Zhao, don't worry. I have helped Nair experiment many times. Her mental strength and body can fully withstand the energy of the 10,000-year soul ring." Looking at the determined young man in front of him, Zhao Wuji said helplessly, "In this case, then you decide for yourself. Anyway, I don't believe you will harm your sister." Ning Rongrong and others looked at Zhao Wuji and chose to agree, and they all felt incredible. As Guyuna's little girlfriend, Ning Rongrong hurried to her side, held the girl's hand and said, "Nair, have you really thought about it?" The girl nodded and smiled at Ning Rongrong. "I believe in my brother. I also believe in myself." Seeing the other party's expression, Ning Rongrong looked up at the handsome young man who was facing her. A blush appeared on her little face, But Ning Rongrong turned her head away, looking like I don't want to bother with you yet. Seeing that the two had made up their minds, although everyone was shocked and worried, they had to follow behind them. This time, the soul beast I prepared for Natter is a sub-dragon, the Thunder Dragon Beast. As the name suggests, this kind of soul beast is a thunder attribute soul beast. They are very powerful. Although Natter's third soul skill has good attack power, it still has a flaw, that is, the power of the attack is not enough. He needs an explosive soul skill. Ling Yu led everyone while explaining the information of this soul beast. Coincidentally, when I came back from the depths of the forest just now, I felt a breath of this soul beast, and according to my judgment, the other party just broke through 10,000 years not long ago. Zhao Wuji nodded. Since there is a target and the location is known, everything will be easy. Then will I take action later, or will you take action? Zhao Wuji asked Ling Yu. He knew that the real strength of this kid would never be inferior to his. Ling Yu stretched out his hand and pointed at himself. This look also surprised Ma Hongjin a little. Although he has known each other for some time, he has never seen Ling Yu take action. Brother Yu, are you sure? Ma Hongjin said to Ling Yu, or, let Boss Zhao take action. After all, he is a soul saint. Ling Yu just looked at him and shook his head, without saying anything else, and walked slowly forward with everyone. Half an hour later, several people could hear bursts of thunder coming from the front. It seems to be in front. Zhao Wuji heard the sound and warned everyone seriously, Ling Yu will choose to take action later. In order not to affect you, don't get too close. Ma Hongjin and others nodded hurriedly. This is a 10,000-year soul beast, and it is a dragon soul beast. They are looking for death and will get so close. Ling Yu greeted Zhao Wuji and Natter, and quickened his pace, but ran forward quickly without making any sound. Everyone also hurriedly walked behind the big tree in front and looked forward. In an open space in the forest, a ferocious beast with lightning wrapped on its body was standing on a boulder, looking at Ling Yu, who appeared in front of it with a cold and cruel look. The height of the thunder beast was about 3 to 4 meters. Its head was similar to that of a normal dragon, but its limbs were very similar to those of a lion. In addition, there were several sharp and slender bone spurs on its back, which made it look very ferocious and terrifying. Ling Yu didn't waste time talking to him. Although he had just experienced a battle a few hours ago, his body had excellent recovery ability, and the fatigue and energy in his body had been completely restored. His eyes instantly turned into 6-pointed star kaleidoscope Sharingan, and he glared at the beast in front of him that was about to attack. Illusion. A swift and subtle mental wave instantly enveloped the Thunder Dragon Beast. The next moment, the opponent's fierce eyes suddenly changed, and his pupils instantly dilated and became a little sluggish. Natter, Ling Yu shouted to the girl behind him, let's put an end to it. The people behind only saw Ling Yu appear in front of the beast. Within 2 seconds, the fierce momentum of the beast disappeared in an instant. They didn't understand what happened at all. Then they heard Ling Yu calling Gu Yuna out. This, Ma Hongjin looked at Im Yubei and Oscar, who were also confused, and said, hey, do you two know what happened? Why don't I understand? Chapter 124 Arrival at Kibao. Natter walked quickly to Ling Yu's front, looking at the controlled beast in front of her with a look of neither joy nor sorrow. Without saying much, she stretched out her right hand, and a silver spear appeared in her hand. Then, with a sound of breaking through the air, the spear instantly pierced into the beast's eyes. As the beast's body trembled violently, it couldn't even scream. A dark soul ring rose from its body and slowly floated in the air. Absorb it, Ling Yu whispered to the girl. If you want to change the rules, you must continue to endure and become stronger. Natter pursed her lips, nodded heavily, sat cross-legged in front of the Thunder Dragon Beast's corpse, placed the dragon spear flat on her knees, closed her eyes, and used her mind to track the soul ring to her body. Is it over? Ma Hongjin asked in great surprise. What on earth happened? I don't know at all. Im Yubei and Oscar were also confused. Only Zhao Wuji realized something after a while, which made him look even more shocked and unbelievable. Ning Rongrong looked at Ling Yu with a glint in her eyes, clenched her fists and placed them on her chest, looking at the perfect young man standing tall in front of her. At this moment, the mystery and strength of the other party were initially revealed. An hour later, when the black soul ring slowly covered the spear, Gu Yuna opened her deep purple eyes, looked up at Ling Yu, and showed a beautiful smile. 4 months later, on the way from Soto City to Xiandao City, Ling Yu arranged for his clone to drive the carriage, while he, Ning Rongrong and Gu Yuna sat in the carriage, eating and chatting. In a few days, it will be the 12th birthday party of Ning Rongrong, the eldest lady of the Seven Treasures Glazed sect. As the leader of the Seven Treasures Glazed sect, which was designated as one of the top 3 sects, and the wealth of this sect that was proud of the continent, this party was held very grandly. Not only did the major sects receive invitations, but even some more famous families, such as the families of the leaders of the major colleges of the 5 major elemental colleges, sent invitations. Of course, in the eyes of many civilian soul masters, this gathering was just a birthday party held by the Seven Treasures Glazed Tile sect for their future successors, but in the eyes of many forces, the purpose of this gathering was definitely not simple. From this journey, Ling Yu had his clone kill nearly 10 evil soul masters, including 1 soul king. From this, we can see how arrogant and rampant the evil soul masters are on the mainland now. During this period, Ling Yu had to go out from Shrek every once in a while, and the time of each trip was not fixed, ranging from 3 to 5 days to half a month. With the Spirit Hall as the leader, the Blue Lightning Tyrannosaurus Rex sect and the Seven Treasures Glazed Tile sect, as well as several other sects, reached an agreement to form an anti-evil soul master alliance. Under the sweep of this huge force, many evil soul masters who frequently appeared on the mainland and even did unscrupulous things have been cleared. However, Ling Yu knew that even so, the evil soul masters kept popping up like locusts, and there must be a reason. After all, if all these evil soul masters gathered together, it would be no exaggeration to say that they were already very close to the number of soul masters owned by the top 3 sects. From this point of view, what is happening on the continent now is definitely extraordinary. Basically, all forces have a feeling of being in a precarious situation, and there is an atmosphere of great power that is about to be destroyed. Every time Ling Yu goes out, he will ask the heads of various branch halls of the Spirit Hall to send him the specific location of the evil soul master. However, because of the fear of spies in the Spirit Hall, BB Dong has arranged a quick attack soul saint to deliver the message to him. As for the other party's loyalty to the Spirit Hall, he can be absolutely assured. After 4 months, Ling Yu's level has reached level 45, which is 2 levels higher. In addition, his current strength is unmatched by ordinary soul Douluo. It is very easy to deal with some evil soul masters who are only soul emperors at the highest. However, all of this was seen by the sword spirit of the Wufang sword, and warned Ling Yu that the Abyss Plane was definitely planning something big. The Abyss Plane is the invasion plane that Wufang confronted. The strength of this plane is extremely strong. Not only is the plane master a first-level god, but even his subordinates have several god-level combat power. It is no exaggeration to say that if the Abyss Plane can attack the Douluo plane with all its strength, then there will be no chance here. Of course, after all, there is a god realm above Douluo, and they will never sit idly by and watch this matter. The storm is coming. Every time Ling Yu thinks of what will happen in the future, he always feels a sense of urgency. The god realm and Douluo will face a great catastrophe. If they fail to survive, the fate of everyone will be terrible. Ning Rongrong looked at Ling Yu's absent-minded look and asked softly, "Ling Yu, are you thinking about the evil soul master?" He nodded slightly, and the dark color did not change. Gu Yuna reached out and held his palm, not knowing how to enlighten him. "Actually, you don't have to worry. The current anti-evil soul master alliance has gathered many powerful soul masters, and there are also several titled Douluo level masters." Ning Rongrong smiled at Ling Yu and said, "With so many soul masters here, the evil soul masters can't make any waves." Ling Yu looked at Ning Rongrong's expression of not taking the evil soul masters seriously, and sighed in his heart, "I am just worried that too many soul masters have the same mentality as you, which will make the collusion between the evil soul masters and the Abyss Plane achieve the desired effect." "I know," Ling Yu replied lightly, closing his eyes and meditating peacefully. Looking at the other party's attitude, Ning Rongrong's face was a little aggrieved. "I obviously didn't say anything wrong. Why can't he treat me better?" 3 days later, when the carriage drove to Xiandao City, under the guidance of Ning Rongrong, Ling Yu controlled the carriage to drive safely to the address of the Seven Treasures Glazed Tile sect. The 3 got off the carriage and looked at a not very high mountain in front of them, with a magnificent attic. The Seven Treasures Glazed Tile sect is indeed the richest sect on the continent. This kind of momentum alone is not comparable to that of other sects. Ling Yu couldn't help but sigh heartfeltly at the Seven Treasures Glazed Tile sect compared with the majesty and sacredness of the Spirit Hall. The Seven Treasures Glazed Tile sect simply took the 3 words "I have money" to the extreme. He could see that every building on the mountain was made of the finest white jade. This expenditure alone was enough to crush any other sect. He, Ning Rongrong, felt particularly happy to hear Ling Yu praise her family like this. Let's go. I'll take you into the sect to meet my father, as well as Grandpa Jian and Grandpa Gu. Ling Yu took Gu Yun's hand beside him, nodded slightly, and followed Ning Rongrong up the mountain. Chapter 125 Test. As Ning Rongrong led the two of them under the respectful and fearful gazes of the seven treasures glazed sect's mountain guarding disciples, the three of them gradually passed through the prosperous pavilions and came to a hall that looked more luxurious and grand than the surrounding buildings. This is where my father and two grandfathers stay every day, and the sect also discusses important matters here. Ling Yu glanced at the crown above the hall. 7 Treasures Eternity. What a 7 Treasures Eternity? Ling Yu ignored Ning Rongrong beside him, let go of Gu Yun's hand, and the 3 Magatama Sharingan on his body instantly possessed him. He stomped his feet and flashed to his side. The moment he flashed past, a sharp sword light cut a deep crack on the place where Ling Yu had just stood. Senior Sword Douluo's way of greeting is really unique. Ling Yu looked at the white-haired old man who was flying in the air above his head, holding a long sword upside down. The old man's eyes were sharp, and the temperament of the world's top swordsman was radiating without reservation, but this huge momentum perfectly avoided Ning Rongrong and Gu Yuna, and completely enveloped Ling Yu alone. HMPH, feeling the heavy pressure on his body, he knew that this was the old man testing his strength. Thinking of this, Ling Yu's eyes were sharp, and the edgeless sword behind him instantly appeared in his hand. The next moment, an equally sharp momentum emanated from Ling Yu in the long sword in his hand. My body is like a sword, extremely sharp. 2 purple and 2 black soul rings emerged from Ling Yu's body, causing Jian Douluo, who saw this scene, to stagnate and look unbelievable. The release of the martial soul and the sharp momentum on his body instantly broke Jian Douluo's majestic momentum. Senior Sword Douluo, this is not a good idea, right? Aren't you afraid that I will go back and complain to the Pope and ask the second and chief priests of the Hall of Worship to come and spar with you and Bone Douluo? Hearing Ling Yu's words, Sword Douluo's eyes narrowed. Although his face remained calm, Ling Yu could still see the blue veins on his forehead. Ha ha ha. Please forgive me, little friend Ling Yu. I asked Uncle Jian to do this. After all, you are the holy son of the Spirit Hall. Although we met once 7 years ago, I am really curious about your talent and strength. Ning Fengzi walked towards the few people with Bone Douluo, and said with a smile as he walked, please don't be surprised, little friend. It just so happens that I got a good thing that can have a great effect on the growth of the physical body some time ago. I believe that once you take it, it will definitely be of great benefit. I will give this thing to you later. What do you think? Ling Yu glanced at the elegant scholar in front of him indifferently, and couldn't help thinking in his heart that this old fox was indeed right as Bibi Dong said. Although Ning Fengzi is hypocritical, he can pretend to be unchanged for decades. That is a real gentleman. Thank you, Sect Master Ning. Before coming here, he had expected this scene. As a person who will definitely stand at the top of the continent in the future boss of the Spirit Hall, the first force on the continent. If we can know his strength level as soon as possible, it will have a great impact on the 7 Treasures Glazed Tile Sect's future plans and attitude towards the Spirit Hall. Ning Fengzi took a deep look at the 4 spirit rings on his body. Although his expression was still smiling, the shock in his eyes could not be concealed at all. Son of the Spirit Hall, your talent is the best in the history of Douluo. Ning Fengzi put one hand behind his back and the other hand across his chest, and chuckled, looking at the records in the annals of history. Your talent is unprecedented. Ling Yu looked at the other party constantly praising him. It is said that you should not hide a smiling person, not to mention that the 2 forces are now in close cooperation. Ling Yu naturally smiled and replied, Master Ning, please forgive me. I am only a little stronger than my predecessors. It is not worth showing off too much. Ning Fengzi took a deep look at Ling Yu again, and sighed in his heart. This boy is not simple, not arrogant or impatient, without any boastful heart. The Spirit Hall has him, and it will be unshakable in the next 200 years. No, according to his talent, even if he reaches that level, there is a great chance. Why isn't such a genius from my 7 Treasures Glazed sect? Although Ning Fengzi was shocked that Ling Yu could reach the Soul sect at such a young age, and with such a soul ring ratio, but considering the current turbulent situation on the continent, perhaps only such a peerless genius can support the world. My friend, please come into the hall to talk. Since we parted 7 years ago, I have been thinking about you. Ning Fengzi smiled at Ling Yu again and said, this time, we must talk properly. Of course, Ling Yu took Yu Yun's hand and followed Ning Fengzi and the two titled Douluo into the hall. Dad, Ning Rongrong looked at the three people who had forgotten her at this time, and said angrily, if you ignore Rongrong, I will be angry. The kind that can't be coaxed. As she said this, she crossed her arms, tilted her head to one side, and pouted her mouth. Her cute appearance made Ling Yu look at her a few more times. Ning Fengzi then remembered the existence of Ning Rongrong, and walked to Ning Rongrong with an apologetic face and said, oh, I was too happy to see the guests, and I actually left my precious daughter here. It's my father's fault. Ning Rongrong snorted lightly, still unwilling to pay attention to her father. Jian Douluo and Gu Douluo also walked to the girl with a doting look on their faces, and kept apologizing, oh, Rongrong, it's all your grandfather Gu. If he hadn't appeared to block Grandpa Jian's sight, how could I not see my little baby? Don't you think so? Damn it, old sword man, you are talking nonsense. It was obviously you who insisted on trying it out just now, which attracted my attention. Otherwise how could I not see Rongrong girl? It's all your fault, you damn old sword man. The burly and skinny old man on the side cursed at Jian Douluo, and kept apologizing to Ning Rongrong. Old bones, I think you're looking for a beating. Have you been itching for a beating in a few days? Sword Douluo glared at Bone Douluo. Go fight over there if you have the guts. This time, I won't use the 7-killing sword to beat the shit out of you. Otherwise, my surname will not be Chen. Bone Douluo also shouted, who's afraid of who? Come on, okay, Uncle Sword and Uncle Bone, there are guests here. Ning Fengzi saw that the two were about to fight again and said hurriedly, don't make a fool of yourself, HMPH. Sword Douluo snorted coldly at Bone Douluo, if it weren't for the guests here this time, I would have beaten the shit out of you, I'm so mad at you. The few remaining hairs on Bone Douluo's head fluttered in anger. Old swordman, you wait, we'll have a good sparring match tonight. Ling Yu looked at this scene with some emotion in his eyes. The 7 Treasures glazed tile sect has Ning Rongrong as the glue and Ning Fengzi's wisdom. The two top title Dalos on the continent will devote themselves to this place wholeheartedly. It turns out that none of the top 3 sects are simple. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone, see you in the next video.